and possibly immature content. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. As a matter of fact, I probably wouldn't listen at all. It's very poorly produced. Take me to your leader.
For the extreme paranormal listener. And here is your host, the wolf on the mic.
Can you dig it? Fantastic! Welcome to Once Against Paranormal Radio. Alright, can you dig it? Lots of shit going on, man. Tonight, it's Pyramid Talk with Jeffrey Boyd Jr. Alright. Shout out. It's a hashtag 47Talk on Twitter. That's where you can chat with us. Or in the Spreaker chat room. Snarky of Oz was the first. Alright. And I have my co-host Darren, the man of 1,000 questions.
I'm here.
All right, how you doing, sir? And we have our once in a while co-host and amazing dude. We got Apocalypse with us. All right, Mr. Apocalypse, are you there? Not sure if Apocalypse is there, but that's for you guys, anyways.
And somebody called me on the other line. I had to hang up to get back into the group.
Okay, and this is Mr. Jeffrey Boyd.
Maybe we're all together now.
Okay, well, I'm going to introduce you here. This is Jeffrey Boyd Jr.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just go ahead and throw money. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. I don't know if you guys are all familiar with Jeffrey's work, but he's a chemist. He's a pilot. He's a researcher on archaeology, and he's done lidar work on all kinds of ancient sites, and he's explored the ocean. I don't know what he hasn't done. He's out there doing it, guy.
Now I'm just trying to get further away from here. But I end up in Mexico every time. I don't know why. Every time it's just, but I did just do the Mars conference in New Mexico in Silver City, and that was pretty awesome. That's like right on the border of Mexico and Arizona, so you can just about be, you can be in two countries and two states at the same time. But that was a pretty awesome conference right there. But hopefully soon I'll be overseas doing it. I haven't had a chance to go over there yet, and doing the pilot thing. I've been flying my whole life. My dad was a pilot, but that's one of the things I got burned out on and stopped putting time into, and just too many other things. I was like, if I don't do something I enjoy, then Because, you know, I got to where I didn't enjoy that, but I worked at the airport forever, and I was like, man, that's what I was telling you earlier. I changed from the computer information systems degree after 2 years. I was like, I'm going to do something else, and I, like, didn't know, so I just took, education, and then, you get to take courses and all kind of stuff in that, and you can change it the last year, and it'll be whatever degree, but now I'm not so much worried about that because they teach so much bullcrap in there, and I went through the whole teaching project, all the classes, which, I found out that when I went to, just a business school class I took on marketing was identical to some of the classes in education, how to basically brainwash somebody, repeating something in a certain amount of times in a certain period of time, and how tests are written to make people remember things and stuff like that. And I started looking at it, I was like, this is total, like, bull. And so I, like, did the whole education thing, but never went to the student teaching. So I'm getting a call. Are you guys on here? It says that I'm getting an incoming call from Petty Lion, or what does it say? Battalion 1 or something? It has a WA on there. I answered it a minute ago and I couldn't hear you guys anymore. Yeah, but I was taking the education, and after years of taking it, it was like it teaches you how the brain learns, and it helped me so much. It's like one of the best classes I ever took, and it was called Study Hall or something like that. But when you took it, it actually taught you how the brain learns, how tests are written, and just true is uses answer more than false because they want more facts to be remembered, and then and just all the psychology of that and just the way things learn. But teaching martial arts, it helped doing that, but it also helped whenever, like, I wasn't doing chemistry. I literally had to learn it, like, teach it to myself so the education thing helped that way. But when I got a job as a chemical metallurgist, that there might be 10 million chemists just in China, just a chemistry degree, but chemical metallurgist, you're basically making a sun in a bottle. You got, like, water, clear, hot, super alloys you're making, and it was just, you're basically setting off an explosion every few minutes, but all your ingredients you're carrying, you're not adding little amounts, you're adding like 25 pounds of this or 5 pounds of nickel, and every time you do it erupts. So they did have the technology for that years ago. It was just totally, I think it's just simplicity, and they overlooked it because they didn't think that they were advanced enough to have concrete or to melt something. But anybody who saw lava cool would know that if you heat a rock back up, it would melt. So those assumptions and things that have just, and the pre-established story, it's like totally overlooked logic and simplicity. Like that's why I said I'm not student teaching, because I'm not teaching anyone Columbus, because he didn't do anything in 1492 except for take slaves and rob people and spread diseases.
How'd you get into ancient structures and the pyramids and everything? How'd you go from being a chemist to doing that?
There's, I said there's with the number of chemists that are out there, that chemical metallurgy has a lot of physics in it too, because you have to know the structure of it, and mixing hard metals and soft metals, and it's just a lot different thing. But there's only like 125 or 150 chemical metallurgists in the world. But whenever, like, Klaus Donna and Bruce Cunningham from Ancient Mysteries International and Advanced Archaeology Review, they started showing me pictures of sites and of materials. They were taking pictures of close up, and I was like, that's manufactured material, that's not. And then we took got somebody to take a test, not like those Germans scratching the side of the King's Chamber or the vault they call the King's Chamber, but there was a test done in Giza at a test dog place, and then I went and looked and compared it to one that was done before that had been suppressed, and to find out the underneath stones, the ones that are visible today, are made from 10% sodium carbonate, and sodium bicarbonate's baking soda. So pretty much it's 10% baking soda, 30% water, 60% sand. Because you have to have that catalyst, because nothing will stick sand together. You have to have something to mix with the water to stick the sand back together. And unless they poured 30-ton blocks and drug them 400 miles, those rocks are still in the quarry down there because they couldn't get them out. I think it's two different people, two different ages, two different technologies, totally two different people completely. And the evidence is just massive on that.
Yeah,
So
that's an interesting
the older
theory.
people, were they doing concrete or were they doing stones?
Both. I found evidence of both of them, and like in the Queen's Chamber, on the what they call the Queen's Chamber in the gallery, if you go look about 90% of the way up the wall, and think about how far the Nile has meandered away from the pyramids, because the pyramids used to have the Nile running through them, but there's a water line about 90% of the way up the ceiling, and on top of that water line is a layer of natron salt, that sodium carbonate I was talking about. And when you put sodium carbonate, and I did it at a science fair experiment, like back in like elementary school, just splitting hydrogen and oxygen. Just take batteries and you wrap positive around one nail and negative around another one, and then stick them down into a cork so that wire's not exposed, only the nail is. And then you put 2 test tubes over the tops of the nails, and when you turn the power on, the hydrogen starts filling up twice as fast as the oxygen, and when it fills up, I'd pull it off and I'd light the thing. So they could generate electricity with their byproduct being clean burning hydrogen and pure oxygen being shot out into the air. And it seems to have lots of things that are missing. No one ever takes that into account. Like if you look around, there's almost nothing in your house that's going to be around in 500 years or even 200 years. Gypsum, sheetrock, all of it's going to be gone. You pour water on sheetrock, it's gone. No one ever considers those things. But then, starting a couple years ago, like we were talking about before the show, it was on Expedition Unknown. I was sitting there watching that while we were waiting, and they're talking about muon technology and muon radiography. And that's what I've been doing. I eventually got to where now I'm doing lots of that, because now I can actually look at a structure like El Castillo down at Chichen Itza, and I can see every cubic millimeter, if there's even a density change, with using radiography and muon radiography. Like say you break your ankle or your shin or something, you go in, they lay your leg up, they sit you up on the table, they put that white tile under your leg, and they put the crosshairs on there, and then boom, they go hit the button. What muon radiography is, they went into the bent pyramid first, and they let you go to the lowest point. So you go underground and lay down the tiles, but like a tile floor, but they're X-ray tiles, and you leave them overnight, and over all night, the cosmic rays that naturally rain down that go straight through everything, they come from every direction, even through the earth, from the other side. So they're going every different direction, and so
when did this technology come into? When did they start being able to photograph with it?
I think the bent pyramid was done about a year ago, a year and a half, about a year ago, and they have what's called a high-speed microscope. And what it does is, when a cosmic ray hits the atmosphere, it's called a muon particle. So it still would go straight through you, but it shows you even density changes in the material, and so it can show you how consistent it is. Earthstone isn't very consistent. You have, like, when you look at marble, you see lines through it and things like that. Well, that's how all Earthstone is, all types, limestone, sandstone, all of it. But
that's how you know it's natural.
Yeah, when you melt it down, like at Puma Punku, that jigsaw wall, and it's just that flat gray color and everything, just 100%.
The megalithic walls?
It's manufactured, and it's the same exact wall that's in Egypt. And but I found the same people now. I think it's Los Chulos, which means the cloud people, the cloud warriors, and they found them down in South America whenever the Inca and the Toltec and the Olmec came down from North America, and they said, and they even will tell you that all of the people from the universities are saying, you built this, and they're like, no, we didn't. It was already here when we got here. And they, in their oldest stories, they're like, well, we saw these people down there. They call the rainbow people or the cloud people, and it was blonde-haired, blue-eyed people. And then you have the Maori in Samoa, and they can you hear me better on this?
Not really. You sound like you're in the dungeon. All right, he's in the dungeon, everybody. All right.
Do I have a better connection now?
Man, you weren't even being
That's better.
That's better. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Jeff?
Yeah.
All right. So, before we get into all the different stuff, how did you get into the ancient antiquities, though? From being a chemist, like, what made you,
I was studying Dr. Rupert Sheldrake, like morphic genetic resonance, and I was taking like isochronic tones and binaural beats, and I was like guinea pigging myself, because if the morphic genetic field's there, that means data is stored in the air and not all of it's in our brain. And so, and that used to be, they call it Looney Tune, but now in physics, they just call it the geometric memory field. So, the morphic genetic field's crazy, but when you rename it, it's okay. They just can't admit being wrong. But what I was doing was I was going into ancient, I could, when you go look at the life on the floor of a pyramid or of a palace in India, and then one in Nepal and everywhere, that's the exact shape of DNA. If you slice DNA like a cross section, if you take a slice shape so they had knowledge, and even pre-Columbian, you can see the sperm and the egg and all that. So that in this one rock, so you could tell they could see microscopic things, and they could see things out in space that are not visible. And so I knew there was higher technology, and so what I was doing is I was looking like at the temple in Dendera for references to frequencies or things like that I would go mess with, and and I've learned, and I'm still doing that. And you can find the Sumerian tablets now. We didn't understand what some of these round things were that have these waves that come out from it. But what it is, you've seen those videos when they turn a different frequency, it makes a different shape. Well, all over the earth, there's these symbols at each one of these places, in Malta, in Egypt, in South America, in Sumer, and when you go in there, and there's a guy from Ireland, Barry Fitzgerald. He was on Ghost Hunters International, and I was thinking the same thing. What happens if we go there and you see the guy on the Sumerian tablet standing on the edge of like these little stair type things, and whenever he's talking to Inky or whatever on the cuneiform tablets, there's always like waves around the person he's talking to. And so it's kind of like the person's not there, or there's some barrier there. And so I thought the same thing. What happens if we play these frequencies at these places, and all these
Right.
ones that are drawn on rocks out in Arizona? You see certain patterns, concentric rings, and then you see some that are shaped like a cross, and some that are literally square, and have a bunch of little round pieces in between, but it's symmetrical. But when he went into one place in Malta, he started doing the tone, and you can just do it with your phone now. Go on YouTube and type in 432 hertz isochronic tone, and it'll play a tone for you. But he said the room started filling with a magnetic field. The whole room went purple on the magnetic field, like from looking at a camera, the room goes from normal to a purple cloud appearing. And there's lots of technology out there, but there's just no doubt that it's as our technology gets better, we understand more, and our history gets longer. And so not only is it telescoping backward, but it's also coming into focus. We're starting to understand it, but it's no coincidence. It's just they were more high-tech than us. That's why as we get more high-tech, we understand that they didn't have a round stone and a copper chisel. Because if you had a 1 pound copper chisel for every 50-ton stone 3 million times, well, there should be, if each one's 1 pound, there should be 3 million pounds of copper somewhere near the pyramid, and they haven't found any.
Well, where would they get it from?
You can't carve it, and just like the mysterious, and so they.
I got some
stuff, and friend Ildes over there, she gives tours over in Egypt if you want to see the real Egypt, and but the mysterious Egyptian rose quartz. Well, all it is, or red granite. All it is crushed rose quartz, feldspar, and mica, which is called epoxy. And when it hardens, you have granite, and the key word of granite is granule or grain, and like the most simple things are overlooked. And
so can you tell the difference between the ones that are natural and the ones that are manufactured?
Absolutely.
And are they both over there?
And if you look, I have a picture. I'll pop it in the room in a minute, but it recently they found like a vault chamber had like all these black vaults, and they kind of had this radiating shape to the underground facility, and it looks kind of like a power station or something. It doesn't look like a mausoleum or a crypt or something like that.
Where's that?
That's about 12 miles south of Giza, and then they found the underground facility of ISIS, and there's so much more underground. Like a pyramid at Chichen Itza has a huge tree under there, but like in Egypt, if you just think about the regular quartz, they say, how did they get this block in here that's bigger than the door? And but the whole thing is, if you don't use rose quartz, but you just use regular quartz, black quartz, whatever color quartz you use, that's the colors it's going to be. And some of the things that are left out that kind of blows me away is like the mica at places like Teotihuacan and then across the ocean. That mica is from one place in Brazil, and it has a very definite signature on it, and so they were a very global civilization. But I've been tracking like this, and it doesn't get simpler. It doesn't go back to a single-celled organism. The further I go back, the more branches you see. So there's more complexity instead of less. We didn't start out as an amoeba and then a fish, and we crawled out and we were in a tree, and then we came down, and then now we're people. As we look back, history keeps getting older and older and older, and now we found something that's 100 million years old.
It's more worldwide. It was a worldwide high-tech civilization, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, right now I've got these scans that I'll show you, and it's these structures, or you can't see them from the outside because they're under ice, but they're 62 acres apiece, and they're made of black basalt, and they've got like 18-foot thick doors that you can push with your finger. You know, Linda Howe had some whistleblower guys on there, and what was crazy is they were saying the same exact thing that I was looking at in my images. I'm like, it's in the exact same place. It's right on the end of the Ross Ice Shelf and the edge of the Trans-Antarctic Mountains. So when that ice shelf breaks off, that's why they're down there right now, sanitizing it, they call it, you know. And I'm like,
they're covering it up, or
I'm telling you, they've back engineered more stuff from under our feet than they have from over our head. I guarantee you, because there's just so much of it. And like, I don't know if any of you have seen it, but it went like crazy viral on Facebook and across media. But I did it. I got a scan done of El Castillo, which means the castle at Chichen Itza.
Okay.
And there's a cavern underneath it that's shaped like a tree. You know the pyramid that the snake comes up and then it ascends the stairs and then it descends. You know what I'm talking about? It has the 9 steps on the corners, but then it has the steps that go up the middle. Well, every year that snake on certain days comes up on the equinox or on the solstice, but
I know what you're talking
to
about.
Find out when I do this scan, the cavern system is huge and it's miles deep, and at the deepest point, like 2,000 to 3,000 feet deep, and away from 5 miles away from the pyramid, there's stairs underneath there. And even little posts that are fashioned, and all that's underwater now. And the pyramid is like this little tiny dot that sits on top of all of it. And so that's
complex.
Yeah, and see, that's what the Maya and the Toltec and the Olmec and whoever was there before then, that they knew that is that. See, what it is think about this. You have the pyramid. Now, 5 miles east, the sun is going to hit that cenote first. So their story of the serpent coming out of the hole, it not only appears on the stairs, but you've got their holy man or whoever looking down the hole where they put their gifts, where they drop things like they do in cenotes and stuff. But look from the top of the pyramid, looking down, and as the snake comes out of the hole, the underground lights up, so it's like you can see the snake come out and then you can see him go back in, because like when the sun rises, it hits that cenote and it lights up all the water all the way to his feet where it's still dark. And so for a few minutes you can see it light up, and as the sun hits the pyramid, you see the snake come out. And so it's a huge machine. Yeah, it's a shadow on the side of the stairs that go up to the top, and every solstice the snake goes up and then it goes back down. And it's made from the sun casting a shadow off of the corner of the pyramid, and the pyramid has 9 steps, so it makes 9 curves of the snake. And a good book to check out, The 9 Waves of Creation by Dr. Carl Kalaman, and it just shows that it's this huge machine, and it's got, but at 2,100 feet deeper, say it's like at that depth. Well, also at that depth, there's these pyramids and stuff we found in the Gulf of Mexico. And then the Navy found some we didn't know about back during the Cuban Missile Crisis and all that. The subs found it back then. And then at Point Doom, I was doing Lighting the Void with Joe Roop.
Yeah.
And Dave Cruz called in from Beyond the Strange, and he said, "Hey, Jimmy Church has been trying to
we're on break here. Sorry.
For years."
Hold that thought. We're on break, everyone.
Make
We're at the bottom of the hour.
terrible sound
Monster
like
Castle
this.
Paranormal.
Well, we got something better for you. We got cushion eject today. We could get some funny sounds like that when it pops out. It will be slow and smooth. Cushion eject is the best in ejection mechanisms for any tape cassette. And we can install eject today. Use call KTEL. More cushion for the pushing, baby. Yeah. More cushion for the pushing with cushion eject. All right.
This is where all the real freaks hang out.
Hello?
Oh, hello. How are you? We are taking one call for you. Is this Mr. Lion?
Yes.
How are you today?
Yeah.
Do you want to bring us Chinese food to Monster Castle?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. She bring Chinese food, and we have big party. We're gonna have pyramid party. How are you doing, Linus? I added you this way.
Fine. For you. You got me this way, yep.
Yeah, I don't know how, I can't add you in on the other one, so there you go.
There I go.
You're on the call-in line. Who cares? I wasn't being used anyway. But if somebody does want to call in, you still can. You can call 226-317-3331, or you can call 360-313-8339. All right, what's going on here? Oh, man. Are we still there, everybody?
I'm here.
Okay, good. All right. Our guest is probably having a short break, and that's fine.
Yeah, maybe.
So,
muted. His mic's muted.
Okay, that's fine. That's good. He knows how to mute his mic when he goes wee-wee.
I'm back. I
Okay.
was actually looking for the imaging, so I could show you. Not many people saw it till I kept it under my hat for a while, and then when I put it out there, there's just no denying that these guys were just not what history says, and there's just no doubt about it. And if you look on the top of what I'm sending, there's a little spike sticking up on what looks like a tree. And did that go through?
Where are you sending it?
I'm just trying to send it into the room.
You're going to send it through Skype?
Yeah, usually just like I sent that one picture a minute ago with my addresses and all that on there. All you do is hit share image, but
Yeah, well, that's not really good. It'll share it with me and the co-host, but it won't share it with the people in the chat room. So, yeah, you don't know how to get into the Spreaker chat room. That would be the coolest if you could share it in there. But you have to go to Spreaker, and then I should have showed you that before. I could send you a link. Or somebody could send him a link.
If you send it to my Facebook, I can do it from my phone.
Actually, I can do that.
But now it looks like my Skype is locked on my computer. It's like giving me a little turning wheel for some reason. But somebody called in just a second ago, and my screen went white. And but I had somebody on the other line that said WH or something.
I think we have. Those are just two different Skype calls that are coming in. Just stay on this one. I think we'll be good.
Yeah. Well, it says Skype, and it says not responding. My screen's white. But anyway.
Just don't touch anything on your computer, and it'll clear up because you're still working. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see.
Liana.
I got another device here, too. But, yeah, and when you look under the pyramid, so what I started doing is, I found that 2,100 feet deep, and then for years, I used to listen to Fade to Black, and I listened to Ground Zero, and I've been listening to Coast to Coast since I was a kid. That kind of got me interested in everything, but, they talked about, for years, Point Doom, Malibu, the underwater UFO base, and Dave Cruz called in and said, hey, why can't you use this lidar and like shoot through the top of the ceiling or something and look at it, or x-ray through it? But I used another method to get the images, so I have the only images anyone has anywhere of the inside of Point Doom, Malibu. You know, the underwater base that sits off the shelf. Now they call they call it Sycamore Knoll. It looks like a parking garage. It has support structures that goes back. It's got a row of columns that go across the front, and then Google Earth has edited it out, but there's another structure next door, and it's 6 miles out, and it's 2,100 feet deep, right on the edge of the continental shelf, and it looks like you're walking into like an NFL, like the Superdome or something. But when you're looking straight through, I got an image where beams were shot straight through, like radar shot through the door. It was sonar, and when it bounced back, it gives you a high definition image. It's bluefin sonar, and so when it came back, you see two pyramids. I mean, on one structure, you see on the left, the one that they always point out. You see, it's totally symmetrical. Every single post is exactly as wide as the next one. They're all the same shape. There's nothing misshapen or natural shaped about it. And looking back into it, you can see, like, of 4 poles, you have an opening in the middle, like, you know, say it's like 270 feet wide and 90 feet tall. You have columns that it goes back, and there's a column, you know, like when you're a kid and you're drawing a picture of a street that's disappearing into the distance, or a railroad track.
Yeah.
It has rows, and all the poles are just as far apart from each other, and so you're looking like a mile deep into it. And there's a bridge that goes over it to the structure next door, and there are columns that on Google Earth now they've kind of laid them down flat to make it look like water erosion. But this was above ground, and this is so old. I believe it's I believe it's proof of Ice Age or pre-Ice Age architecture. I'll say Ice Age because if you were coming from the west, from the far east, from our west, and you were traveling along the North American ice cap before the Dryas event, if you're traveling along there, you would run directly into Point Doom. That was where the ground met. That was basically where the ground met it. And if you were coming from the east over the ground, you'd run into it. If you were coming up the coast of South America from Antarctica, where the ice cap goes up 2 miles, well, that's where Point Doom was. I mean, it's like it was kind of like the center of the earth, you know. It's like no matter which direction you came from, if you're walking along that wall or walking toward it, you're gonna run into Point Doom. But Malibu Canyon, it's called Mugu Point, and the Mugu Point Naval Base is there. And see that there's all these, it looks like 4 fingers you claw through the sand, but that's Malibu Canyon, like the Grand Canyon. And just like when you camp, you cut a ditch around your tent so the water will run around your tent and not into it. Well, the water goes there's 4 vertical, you know, that run perpendicular to the 90 degrees to the coast. And so that's runoff water from the ice cap melting. And then you can see between the 2 buildings where another canyon was cut, and there's a bridge over it. And it's flat. There's like no arches. There's nothing natural about it. It's just, you know, it would have to be super strong, because we're talking about Malibu. We're talking about the biggest waves in the United States, and this is where they come up out of the water, you know. And
so this ancient structure, are we using it now for our military, or is it just an ancient thing that's down there that they know about?
I think they've known about it for a very long time. This was built above ground, because if it was underwater, it would have never cut the canyons.
Right.
And but Mugu Point Naval Base I don't know if that's the name of the naval base right there, but it's at Mugu Point. But the naval base of the 4, that's to the 4 canyons to the left of it, They're just in a row, just like if you put your fingers up and spread them out a little bit. On the first one, your index finger, that's where it goes into the navel base. Your pinky on the right side of that would be where the Point Doom, what everybody knows is that oval thing. But there's also a structure next door, and if you could imagine, like, the Roman Colosseum, and it has poles or pillars that go, and they're all the same size, they're totally symmetrical, but nature's not going to make 70 pillars or 100 pillars exactly symmetrical, but
how many exactly is there?
The front, and then they curve in the middle and go on each side of that canyon that's between it, and there's a bridge that goes over it. And Carla and Karen, everybody at the Mars conference, they're like, I know it's the Mars conference, but you got to show the Point Doom stuff, because
yeah.
Where is that again? Could you tell us whereabouts that's located again, please, sir?
What's that?
Could you please let me retell us where that's located on the globe?
Malibu.
Oh, wow.
California.
Okay, that's the Malibu anomaly?
Yeah.
Oh, right on. Okay.
And it is absolute architecture, 100%, no doubt about it. And you can see the poles, and I have an image where you see a space, like you would have a door, a main entrance, like a big hall.
Yes.
And then you have two poles that are close to it, but they're equal distance apart on both sides.
Can you send me some
shape.
Send me some
pictures. And then you see them go off in the distance, so they're even equidistant going back. But I think that's the biggest megalith and the oldest on Earth, next to the Great Wall of China. I think that's the biggest and the oldest that we've seen. But now we're looking underground, and you wouldn't believe the things we're seeing now. But like I said, if you ever murder somebody, mail all of your evidence to the Smithsonian. It'll disappear.
Oh, yeah. The Smithsonian Conspiracy Group. Yeah.
Oh, there's no conspiracy no more.
I mean, the cover-up.
San Diego, they have, and it's amazing. They have San Diego. They have a Skunk Works Smithsonian site. Now, why would the Skunk Works have a Smithsonian site? And out front, there's two statues that are sitting kind of in a throne, and one has in his hand a pyramid, and it says past, and the other one has a pyramid in his hand and has future. Now, why would they do that if those were tombs? They know those weren't tombs if it says past and future on it, and then there's an obelisk in the background, and they're like, oh, no, they were just burying people there, like, there's no way.
Why do they want to keep it from us?
It's just this pre-established story,
it's
and
power.
They want to be the pinnacle of intelligence ever, and it's just a system of control, and
information and power.
If an independent doesn't, and that's what I tell people, I'm trying to get, what I'm trying to do now is just get some things going. I want to open up a lab that has like anonymous testing where I can get a number and I can go test something on a mass spectrometer or whatever and give you results with no bias of who you are or religion or anything. Because for years in South America, you couldn't get them to date anything over 6,000 years. Well, then it went to 10,000 because of Egypt. Well, then when Göbekli Tepe was founded, it went to 12,000. So it only goes up when they're forced to go up. But it's when the climate consensus is changed. So, that's what me and Omar are talking about. You got to, when you change the minds of the people, it's like trial by media, and it's just getting people to actually look at that and forget disclosure. You're asking for a person who has pathologically lied to you every single day, for the past 100 years,
Yeah, we're not more than that. Since Columbus came to America, they've been
tell you something scientific, and they don't even have the right equipment in their head to say if a project gets funded or not. Like
How
all
do
this weather crap.
Jeff, how do you get access to these photos or the new technology? How do you get it?
Man, I'll tell you this. for one, all these universities and all these things we see being launched up, and like yesterday I put up the launch of the Arab Sat and all that stuff, which is going to be over Africa and the Middle East to give them, I guess, better mobile coverage, but it has other equipment on it too. But like the helioviewer.org, HELIO viewer.org, no spaces, that's SOHO. That views the sun 24 hours a day. And I have a video of our magnetosphere being blown off the Earth, and you can see the pulses coming from the magnetosphere springing like a Cadillac that has about 12 too many people in it. Every time it dips, it goes deeper and deeper until finally the whole magnetosphere was wiped out. And when it did, that's when the fire happened just a couple months ago. Remember in New York and in Louisiana and in California, those big electric fires. They all happened at once, but they never reported them together because they all happened at the same time. And it was because for that 1 second, we didn't have any protection from the sun. And if you notice, you'll see trees that are okay, and right next to it, you've got this big blue fire, and the electric wires are on fire. That's why they're talking about now. That's why they're really talking about shielding. That's all I heard yesterday on the actual radio, is them finally talking about shielding the grid.
I know last summer in my neighborhood, everyone's lawn that got burnt just died. I mean, usually it just goes dormant, but I mean, all our lawns are just dead.
Here it's the same way. And you know, when I was working at Komatsu as a metallurgist, well, I knew they were using crystalline silica, this Doxy 3 stuff. That's basically a mortar to put inside of this metal bottle, pretty much, and that's where you start the fire. That's your furnace, AOD furnace. It means argon oxygen decarburizer, so you can inject oxygen or inject argon in there to calm it down if it's getting too hot, because it can explode if it gets too hot, or just melt it all down. But you know, doing that really opened my eyes to like so many things that were just became obvious after that. And like a perfect example, like and this is when I started thinking about it, and I took that job, and I knew how hard it was, and I knew they weren't paying me right on it, but I was like, I want the training of it no matter what. But but yeah, when I found out they were poisoning us, I got the training, got it done. That's why I have a video. I made a hidden video collection where I had my a camera in different places around the lab showing me calibrating a mass spectrometer, calibrating a LECO cell, doing tests on the mass spectrometer, and then going and adjusting the thing. And you shows nobody else in the lab, so it shows that the Romanian boss at the Japanese company totally trusted my chemistry. And so I figured they asked us to write a safety circle report, and I wrote it, and I was the only one, and I wondered why. And I was like, I said, I better not turn it in yet. I went and made a video, because I said, once I turn this in, I'm not going to have a job anymore. And you're going to find me floating down a bayou somewhere. That's why we have a Romanian boss at a Japanese company. But when I was leaving out, and this is how the system goes, it's why this deregulation stuff, all of our wells around here have been capped off, and now we're put on city water because they poisoned everything here. Because there's an oil rig right down the road. And you turn the showers on, it would smell like sulfur. But it really opens your eyes to things, and the pollution is what they want you to think about climate change, and that we're doing something to block it, and all. They want you looking at that stuff, and that is such a tiny thing compared to the poisons and the fact that they don't want to say it, but if you do not shield the United States, and I don't know if they're using this literally, and it is MAD, mutually assured destruction, but with an unprotected grid, if you set off an EMP over the United States, you would have 250 to 400 Fukushimas at the same time, and that's an extinction level event. And so they don't want information like that getting out there, and they don't want us to learn things like that. So they've turned schools into consumer factories and, political voter factories, and thinking.
But
and
if the power went out, if hold on a second. If the power went out,
night.
It's my wife saying good night. Wouldn't they have battery backups or
30 minutes?
Just 30 minutes. And how long does it take to shut down a nuclear
That's
reactor?
scary as hell. And well, just like the thing in Fukushima, just picture like a swimming pool. Now the bottom of the swimming pool has a honeycomb grid across it, but they're round. Then there's a round pole in each one of them. Well, half of them, when they rise up into the water, they come up from the bottom, and you have all these poles up. And whenever those, like uranium 235 or whatever, plutonium, whichever one they're using, when those come up, it starts heating up, and they start, like a microwave. They start rubbing together, and it starts producing heat. Now we're using a 1940s technology. We're basically using a nuclear weapon to boil water, because all nuclear plants are turning steam turbines in 1860s technology, an 1840s technology. And so it's
what
just...
should we do?
Well, I mean, look, Brazil already has 82% of their electricity being provided by hydroelectric, by dams and other things. But there's another one, and if you go check out what they're doing in Denmark and Sweden and all those places, if you look, it's called D-Wave, not like the quantum computer, but kinetic wave energy. And what it is you always have waves going up and down, so they made these floats. And, just imagine if you put your arm out, and then coming out of your arm, like T on both sides, you have sticking out like 10 floats, square floats, and they're on an arm. And as the wave comes in, it moves this hydraulic thing back and forth, and it's pumping huge amounts of power. And each one of those arms provides power for like 30,000 homes. And it's endless energy, and you don't need sunlight, you don't need anything, you literally don't need... And
we need to move away from nuclear.
Well, hey, and look...
That would be horrible.
Even people can't use the problem of the eyesore thing, because we started working on it and said, okay, well, what if we put these underwater? Because the waves still come underwater. And there's another one that was made, and different people have done different designs, and like, those tube floaty things, you see it like every dollar store out front during summer. Well, if you have those, and it's shaped like a swirl kind of, but you have a rod sticking through it, and it as the river runs, it turns those things, and it can be underwater. But there's also another one that you...
It wouldn't hurt. It wouldn't hurt the...
But think about a field across the bottom of the ocean, about a mile out, and now you don't have to see anything. You have these an arm that sticks up from the bottom of the ocean, just a rod, and you got a pin sticking through it on the bottom and a float on top of it. And as the water comes in, it hits the ocean floor, and then it swings back and hits the other way. And so now imagine a field of those across the sea floor. It's pumping those hydraulic arms back and forth, and you can't see anything. All you see is the ocean. So there's no byproduct. There's nothing. You're literally using the Coriolis effect and the power of the Earth turning to power all of our needs, But 99% of our energy, I'd say 95% of our energy we lose in the power lines in heat. And then the rest of it is blocked by circuit breakers, fuses, and it's everything like that. Your computer and your TVs and things like that run on about the amount of a AA battery. And when I say computer, I'm talking, when I heard that fact, we were still using the cathode ray tube computers, didn't realize we were all blinding ourselves in the 90s and early 2000s. And even those big computers that were 56K, they run on a small amount of power. And we did a show called Passing the Fire for the Standing Rock movement because they're trying to run all the natives out like they haven't run them off enough so they can put a pipeline through there. And so, but if we can sit there and figure out how to fix the grid and put it to where you not only, there's no eyesore, there's no pollution in it, you know, and if you look at the ancients too, they had a bunch of ways doing it because I think a lot of the things we figured out just recently, like in Bosnia, if you can look it up and there's videos, and I was thinking about this one day and it was in my mind for a while because it was one of those things like somebody gives you a little like riddle. And what they did is they flew Dr. Samir Osmanagic and Slobodan, his partner. If they flew a drone up into above the pyramid. Now, regular electricity, the way it would work, the highest amount of charge would be like right if electricity, because you know you always see pictures of beams coming out of pyramids.
Yeah.
Well, how can you get it to where 300 feet above the apex, above the top of the mountain, it gets 300 times stronger? How can that even happen? The reason it's happened, I want you to think about a Duracell battery, a copper top, upside down, buried in the ground, and there's a piece of metal down there under the bottom, so it's grounded. Now you have negative side up. They weren't shooting beams out of the pyramid. They were pulling the positively charged ionosphere down. So not only using the power of the Earth with the kinetic wave energy, but we can use the positively charged ionosphere. And that's what they were doing. I think that all these cities, and using lidar, now you realize that all these things look like circuit boards underneath the ground, and it shows you people build around utilities, around water, around power, around these other things. But we're just now starting to understand other things. I'm starting to think even the light bulb thing you see in Egypt with the snake inside. There's what's called the Crookes tube, and it is etherical. It's not actually electricity, and I'm starting to think that maybe that's what that is. That's just another field that we're just now starting to understand. And but there's just so many of those answers. But right now, everything's about the petrodollar, and they don't want you to mess with it. And that's all there is to it. And they're going to keep it in place as long as they can. And, you know, a perfect example, the way they saw problems. Obama got all this money that he asked for to bail out the banks. Well, instead of giving all this, you know, $3 trillion to all these farmers, my family, your family, people with mortgages, people who are given loans that shouldn't have been given loans, because banks they were getting farms and getting homes and everything else and getting rich by giving people loans they knew they couldn't afford over time. But if the government would have used that money, if Obama would have allocated that money and said, pay off everyone's loans, then all of that money would have still gone to the same exact banks for the same amount of money, but everybody would have kept their homes and farms and cars and their lives. So
much money. And where did it go, you know?
It went straight to the banks. And
I know.
And it's just electric. They're literally they took it. I'm sure they probably burned it by now. You know, it's electric and it's just BS. But they had a chance to do something good. But why do something good when you can just pay the banks the money? You know.
Hey Jeff.
Jeff, line their own pocket.
The pyramid of the sun. Have you looked at the concrete there to see if it's natural or not, or?
Yeah. I've got some pictures sent over to me, and Bruce Cunningham from Ancient Mysteries International and Advanced Archaeology Review talked to him, and this was like 2 years ago. I said, tell him to look for, and that's what I was telling you about the battery being upside down. Tell him to look for a quartz foundation.
All right.
These pyramids are being set on top of a quartz foundation, and when you put weight and pressure on top of quartz,
yeah.
you have piezoelectricity.
Piezoelectricity. Hang on to that thought. Piezoelectro. We're going to have a piezoelectric break here, man. We'll be right back. Jeffrey Boy Jr. Ruby. Fantastic, baby. Ruby. And what do we got? I got a treat for you. Yeah, I'm gonna play the new song from the Mary Jane's Band, Chanting Worms.
We're chanting to tell you it's changing, it's changing. It's changing, so heavy. Be ready, be ready.
The Mary Jane's Band. What's his name again, Darren? Tom. Damn. He was on our show.
Jeff, I just got your picture.
Yeah. You see what I'm talking about now? You get the tree and the pyramid.
Malibu?
No, that's Chichen Itza at El Castillo. You see the little green spike sticking out of the top of the tree? That's how big the pyramid is. But if you look way down on the bottom, miles away from it, there's stairs down there. So that puts the age way back, like 100,000 years. But no, I had to keep my Malibu pictures off of my computer and off my phone so they won't get taken. But it shows you that that little stem sticking up out of the top. Look at the picture on the right. The picture on the right is muon radiography, or it's radiography, and that's the chamber in the very middle. It goes up and down. That little tiny green stem sticking out of the top. So that's the huge thing they call the castle, El Castillo. But the tree-looking thing, if you look at it, there's rooms down there, and there's stairs, and to the left that go to the Gulf, and then there's stairs to the right that go east into the jungle.
Yeah.
To that cenote, and they're miles away from it. And so if the water level was 400 feet lower 12,000 years ago, then how much lower did it have to be for it to get 2,000 feet deep, and 5 miles inland? And it's a huge machine. And we're finding machine, even Angkor Wat, what we see on top of the ground, that's only about maybe 5% of what's underground. It looks like it looks more like Coruscant from Star Wars than it does, Caveman. It looks like a motherboard, and that's what's underneath the jungle. But when you shoot the lidar down, you can see through all the jungle and through the ground and all that.
When did they find that?
What's that?
When did they find that?
When
did they take that image?
Shot that. That was I don't know. I'll have to. I can look at the details on my picture. And what I do is, and y'all asked a question about how I get the images. So few people ever try to even do anything that a lot of these satellites do not even have a login and password or even register your email or nothing. You can just hop on the telescope, you can hop on the satellite. The lidar scene, you can go put in a certain coordinates on what's called a wish list. There's different lidar groups. It just depends. Different companies own different satellites and stuff, but you put different coordinates in there, and the computer will go get them. But there's some places like you can't get an underground scan in New Mexico. I've tried a bunch of times.
Nowhere in New Mexico, huh?
No. They're not going to show you New Mexico, and they're not going to show you California or like Catalina Island. The Getty Museum is standing on top of an ant bed. The underground is just so much more massive, just like that pyramid being so tiny. That's what that little green stem is sticking up out of the top. That goes to the top of the pyramid. But when you walk into the pyramid, there's like 3 different levels. But those same people I told you about, they were in India. They said they left because the dark ones were waging war. Well, they ended up in Egypt. That was the Golden Age Egyptians. Well, then they left there and went out north, south, east, west, well, not south, unless they're the ones who built the stuff in Antarctica. But the structures in Antarctica are like each one of them 62 acres, and they're black basalt, and they're down at the 33 and 34 million year mark. So there's crazy things we've been finding lately, like in lumps of coal, finding things. Klaus Donna has one thing, and this was one of the first things that kind of just got me looking at all these things. As there was a mine in Africa, down at at least the 95,000 year mark. He found someone dug up on a dig at the bottom of like a mine. They got this Godzilla looking doll, and it's like a clay figurine, and it had a round belly. And so Klaus sent it back to Austria. And see, Klaus Donna's from the art world, so he's like me. I don't care if it is or isn't aliens. I don't care if it is or isn't. I just want the answer. I don't have any opinion on anything else. But I found that history is much simpler. And when I sent it to the guy said, "Klaus, why would you waste my time and waste my money sending me this?" He's like, I would never do that. And he said, why are you asking? He said, because there's a ball bearing of chromium inside this thing. So some kid was probably making a doll figurine or something 95,000 years ago, and the inside of it, or there's some other purpose for it, that we don't know. That's down, 10 times longer than our current history is. But but if you're looking at Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan area, the biggest megaliths on the earth is Mount Shoria Gornaya, like Kazakhstan, like all around the Black Sea. Really? But that's where the Kyrgyz civilization, the Kyrgyz giants, and just imagine Greeks. People think of the giants, they think about like a club and a guy who's going to bite your head off, but these guys look like Greeks, and they're literally reliefs of the Kyrgyz talking to the Greeks. And then in Carpathia, there's what's called the prehistoric Dacia, and you can hear like Prometheus talking to Atlas and like the real people before all of the mythology and all that. But over and over, we're finding that it's not mythology, and like they'll tell you like, okay, this is the temple of the feathered plume serpent, and I'm like, this is Templo del Hombre Barbado. I was like, that means Temple of the Bearded Man, and I have never seen one Mayan with a beard. And so, and so that tells you that Quetzal and Kukulkan, that's Graham Hancock's builder gods right there.
Yeah.
In South America, they're called they were called the Rainbow Warriors and the Cloud Warriors and all that, and the Maori and the Samoan Islands, and even over in Micronesia and stuff. But you find them all over the earth. But a cataclysm happened, and I think that might have been the Younger Dryas event, or the events. And I think there were multiple. Like Graham Hancock, I think he has a good idea that the Key Lakes being formed in the Carolinas. If you have a glacier that's melting, well, now that shows you how the that kind of gives you an idea why the states is shaped the way it is. And but if it went west of if it was west of the Rocky Mountains, when it ran off, it right where it hit the ocean. It's not gonna go down the coastline and then take a right. It's gonna go directly off where the thing ends. And so that's what dug around around Malibu Canyon, and I'll show you the pictures. I just got to use some other method, like I always make a private room or to view it or something like that, or email it or something, but not through Gmail. And it's pretty sad, I mean, everything that they hate, everything that the Democratic people didn't like Bush for. The Patriot Act, which is not very patriotic because that's one of the amendments. Well, that was just looking at data between people who were getting calls from the Middle East and from the Baltics and places like that. And now, then they call it what, the Freedom Act when Obama did it, and now they have facilities that can hold 1,500. Or it was something like 15 billion cell phones worth of data, and just huge amounts. And now it's like his metadata is everything. And but I think that's why it's funny. They have everybody else recorded, but they can't find certain people's emails. And but that's why I don't even listen to all that stuff. I'm like, if you guys are like arguing about that stuff or give a crap about it, I was like, nothing has changed. It's teeter-totters back and forth, but we were on the verge of a lot of bad things. You can't have the same people in power for too long. I've never been able to sit through one episode of The Assistant or whatever it was called, the Donald Trump show, because I don't like cocky people. I guess from doing martial arts my whole life, it's a horrible show. You should be a loving person. The man who feeds the world never dies hungry. And
so you don't like the Bushes, and you don't like Trump, and you don't like Obama
as a person, but there was such. I started calling Obama the drone wave killer, because then he started doing this thing where they come around 2 minutes later when the first responders there bomb it again, so there's no witnesses to collateral damage and horrible things like that. And I'm like, oh my God, you know, man, they're having fun with this stuff. And I'm like, they don't have any value of human life. And I'm like, getting sick from drinking my own water. And Aaron Brockovich is coming out from California to say they're lying to you. And I try to tell everyone, I was like, the newspaper and the news on TV, I'm just going to have to tell you, says the water in Bossier and Houghton is not safe to bathe in or to drink, but if you have to shower and you see a worm, don't touch it because it's poisonous. Get something to dispose of it, get gloves, whatever. But the whole thing is, an amoeba can't be a worm because by definition an amoeba is a single-celled organism. It's microscopic. It cannot be a worm. And so if you and the people with the news, that's like they totally think that everybody's so stupid. But you know what? No one has said a word. And I've got DARPA 2 miles away from me, General Dynamics. And on the other side of the street, I've got the Air Force Base. And I heard the 2 loudest explosions I've ever heard in my life yesterday. And everybody just kind of like looked up and just kept going on about their business. I was like, that was a concussion wave. Do you know what that is?
Hey,
like,
for the people
about, you know, if somebody was flying, you know, 500 feet over your house and broke the sound barrier loud.
Okay,
I mean,
what is
shaking
DARPA?
windows, you could tell it was really big and far off. You know, but it was the loudest boom I've ever heard, and I've had transformers explode outside my door. And
oh shit!
But the old rig out here, and that's why, like, you know, things work out the way they're supposed to. Sometimes, even if the system needs a monkey wrench, but Trump's been doing, I've been meaning the rest of them have, but sometimes you need to break up the good old boy network.
Yeah, that's why I liked it, because
hell yeah.
Hey, Jeff.
We needed a civilian, no matter who it
or
is.
Darren, could you explain to
pig, really?
Exactly.
Sorry.
But you know what? He's smart and he knows it, and he says what he's gonna do and he does it. You know.
I know, it's so weird.
The rest of them make 1,000 things and they say they're gonna do it, and that's just, if somebody's screaming change, that means they have nothing to say. You know, because everybody wants change, you know, and but it's just been the same bullcrap for years. And I just got tired and I unplugged. Like Kathleen Fitzgerald, the Columbia Gorge Skywatch group in Oregon, she says, kill your TV. If you don't watch TV for a year, just stop watching that crap and get all your info on what the news or what the weather is, what's going on in space. You know, sometimes it's not on the news that a 6-mile long asteroid like passed between us and the moon, and you know, just crazy stuff.
Yeah, like throw your fucking TVs out the air, out the window. MCB radios on the air. All right. I got a question.
A lot of people up there now. I did Ground Zero, and so I've been listening. I've been listening to them. I've been up in Colorado.
Guys, can you not hear me?
And up in there, but down in New Mexico. I try to spend my time south of the border, though.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Have you been on the Yucatan Peninsula more?
Yeah, and there's certain places if you go on the South Yucatan down by Belize, because that's closer to Tikal and Palenque and all that stuff. But if you down there, people are like, you're not scared of the guy over there in a mask? I'm like, he's smoking a joint and has his arms rested on his machine gun, and his only job is to make sure you don't get hurt by the cartels here, because if you do, the tourism goes straight back from Playa del Carmen and Cozumel right back into Cancun. And so, you know, there's safe places to be, but you know, and that's why whenever I say, hey, let's do a tour and go down and see the pyramids, and I'll take some people down there, you just got to be, I mean, I speak Spanish, but if you know what they're saying around you, it's such a major help. But also, if you're just not a jackass, if you're just nice to people and you're worth more to them alive than dead, you know, because they have families that have their uncles down the street with a taco stand, and they've got a gift shop, and they've got this and they've got this. So everybody you run into, it's a lot more like it was here in like the 50s. You got your neighborhood schools and things like that. But now, you'd be surprised. In Costa Rica and places like that, there's just like Argentina has its German cities, there's entire American and Canadian cities in Costa Rica and Belize and the South Yucatan.
Yeah.
But I always go I try to get about an hour at least out of, I usually go about 45 miles outside of Cancun, in that area, because you can go on the general tour, but just like in Egypt, you're not going to find anything at all taking the same tour. It's kind of like, don't look at that door over there, and that's how Carmen Bolter, they followed the hallway that they saw chained up, and they started driving out in the desert, following the hollow underground until they got out to Saqqara, and then found the 3,000-room labyrinth that has to be the one Herodotus was talking about in Greece. And they made more labyrinths back then, but this one, they call it the labyrinth, but it's not built like a labyrinth. The imaging of it, just like the one in the Mexican one I showed you at Chichen Itza, it looks like almost like a storage facility, or like apartment buildings or something. That's what it looks like.
They still haven't found the labyrinth, though. There was a labyrinth in the Egypt area that a lot of people wrote.
Hey,
still haven't found it. Right?
No,
can you hear me? Can you guys hear me all right?
We did. And that's when we started. The second we started using lidar. We shot underground. It's 2 stories. It's 1,500 rooms per floor, 2 floors, and the ceilings are really tall. And then with the lidar, you can adjust it to where you can shoot images through. Just imagine you've got a lens. Those old school cameras like in the 50s and 60s, and they had like 6 different lenses that would rotate on it. Yeah. Just imagine a satellite like that. Well, it's going to fire X-rays and lasers and different types of beams down, gamma rays and stuff, things like that. But radar is radio detection and ranging. LiDAR is light detection and ranging. So you're just using a laser the same way you would with radar. It scans it back and forth. And so different particles go through, just like with the radiography, go through different materials at different speeds, or will go through a period. So you can set it to bone or to precious stones or to gold or to wood, and it'll tell you there's wood in there because it's full of sand, and it's like 80 cubic acres or something. And so it would take a lot. Yeah, well, they went out looking at the pyramid at Saqqara, I think it's called, and everybody goes and looks at the front of it, and they're standing right on top of the labyrinth the whole time they did.
Neat.
And never knew. And there's underneath Giza, the Giza Plateau has an underground to it that, and if you look, even the Great Pyramid is built on top of where something else was. Just like at Chichen Itza, the observatory, they call it, is built on top of something else. But
there's something there long ago before it?
Yeah, and and if you think about Plato and Socrates, and they were talking about Atlantis, but then they described it as having 2 seasons. But that, just like Chichen Itza, like El Castillo, just like Egypt, all of them have this one in common. And down in Peru, and there's 3 different distinct layers to it. And then there's something older underneath. And the observatory is sitting cocked at a weird angle. There's a foundation that the LiDAR found because nobody said anything about it. And I was like, look, we've got a perfect square, the exact size of the thing. It was like they tore it down and had to turn it about the same as the tilt of the Earth is, So it's like when the Earth tilted sideways, because if the Earth's straight up and down, if the Earth's straight up and down, you have 2 seasons. and when the Earth's leaning over one way, and you get to where the North America is facing away from the sun at night, that's winter for us, but that's summer for the southern hemisphere. And then you go around when it's on the sides, and that's
Maybe
when
there's
the winter,
maybe there's
or that's when you get
polar
fall.
shift, a pole shift, and then they had to move it a little bit or something.
Yeah, well, it's like there's just the further you look back, the further we're finding. I mean, that's why Klaus Don's book says digging for new questions. Because like the further we look back, the more we find. The guy who did, you remember, like back in the 90s, they said, like Gattaca, they had that movie out, and they said you're going to be able to, after the year 2000, you're going to be able to program your kids' eye color, hair color, athletic, whatever. And they had all this stuff, and they were talking about, we're jumping the gun big time, because they found out when they finally broke down the human genome that something like 100 times, a rice plant has 100 times the genetic pairs of GCAT that we do. A sea urchin has twice as much DNA information as we do. And so that's why I started studying the morphic genetic field. And then I watching Nassim Haramein at the Rogue Valley Physics Conference, and he said, I couldn't believe it. I left my roommate in the room hungover from Hard Rock the night before, and Coca La Bonga or whatever the other place is, Sammy Hagar's place, and I left him there and went to Chichen Itza. I was like, I'm all the way down here, but this was like 1990 something, 1999. Yeah, that's right, because they were playing Prince everywhere, and but I went down there, and there was this group that you could still get up on the pyramids back then, and with certain people there, certain times you could still get up on there. Now they do these cool light shows on and everything, but I found out, they had a group up there, like, in there meditating, and I went up there and sat next to the door and, like, closed my eyes, and it was just kind of like you could feel like a hum, electricity, it's like, and almost like see people walking by you, and that was like the first experience I ever had like that. And then I found out 15 years later, 17 years later, that's the same exact place that Nassim Haramein did. He was sitting right next to the door on top of the El Castillo at Chichen Itza, overlooking the ball court, but you close your eyes and you can kind of see him playing ball there, and it was just, but history just, it makes him out to be brutal and very low tech, and just, and it's not true, it's just, there was a de-evolution, entering the dark ages. We devolved, and that was after catastrophes.
What did that feel like? Did it affect you later? Did you feel life changing, or?
Yeah, after that, I didn't look at anything the same anymore. And being in martial arts, I'd heard, and I had studied other things, and I just kind of always just didn't understand it, but just went along with it, But I sat there and just closed my eyes, and I just felt like even the ground, the stone underneath me felt like it got soft, and I could see people walking by, and it was like they could see me, and I was like, what the heck? And then I hear like he had this same type of experience, and then I hear other people have the same exact type of experience, but they say like a black hole destroys everything except for data. And that memory stored in the morphic genetic field that Nassim and Dr. Rupert Sheldrake are talking about, like the flat life. That's our genetic code. Say we're on 98.965 something FM, and that's our genome, the human sapien. Well, another species might be just a different tune. So those were the tones that I was trying to find. And so I kind of started going on a search for them, and discovered a whole bunch of things along the way. And then
it's bottom of the hour.
Got a job as a allergist, then people started coming to me and asking me, "Hey, would you look at these just when you get a chance?" And
Set
tell me
up,
what you think
major
about
credit
these
cards,
phones?" And I'm
PayPal
like,
accepted.
All
And
right.
you can even type out. I have a sex doll here. I call her Slut Face.
Oh, man.
Slut face, slut face, slut face.
Slut face, slut face, slut face.
Oh, slut!
Oh, I don't know if he can
She
even
will
hear me.
she will speak whatever you type out. If you go to cornerdonate.live and type in a paragraph, my sex robot Slut Face will speak whatever you type.
Wow.
Oh yeah, and I'll get a vibrate up my butthole.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, everyone should get one of
Fuck
those.
it, man. I'm gonna put it in my girlfriend. You want it?
Oh, that's a terrible
All right, I'm gonna
commercial.
put it in Jody.
Dude, I'll help myself.
Jeez.
Come on, George.
Oh, boy.
Get ready for out of here. He's much too smart for us.
Yeah, that dog character was great in one episode, I believe.
one good example, like Omar pointed out when I was on Watchers.
Wow, that was too loud,
That black
too.
vault that I showed that's made of granite, Ildy took a picture of me for me down there.
So obviously,
Australia.
you guys can't hear me.
With me and
Like, seriously?
But,
I seriously don't think they can hear me.
side of the piece
Hello?
of granite, and all of the
Dang.
other granite that has none of
That
this
is
stuff was all
fucked.
black. It didn't have any symbols in it, but it had like an inlaid gold pinstripe, just one. And then the rose quartz, it was almost like they stamped it into epoxy and then just scraped off the extra and everything comes out perfect. But whenever the current day Egyptians try to go and chisel in, Khufu or something into the side of it, it looks like a 3-year-old drew it.
Yeah, I know.
They can't draw a straight line, and that's because the ancients were writing it in epoxy. And you see the same thing in Indonesia. Hey, look at all the pyramids in Indonesia. They might be older than Giza. And you've got Candi Suka, Candi Kethek. When the first time I saw them, I was like, that's got to be Aztec. It's in Indonesia. And then you got Borobudur and Gunung Padang, and we were there, and there's like 3 chambers inside of that. And then just like last month, they found.
Have you been to all these places?
No, but I'm supposed to. I was supposed to go to Gunung Padang in Cambodia and Siem Reap, Cambodia with Bruce and all them. I was named as a speaker at ASEAN at the Advanced Archaeology Symposium, but some people didn't want me to go. And people tend to do that, especially people that don't like what you're doing, but more family kind of thing, family kind of problems.
You think they'd want a metallurgist and a chemist to be there?
Yeah, my fundraiser was kind of rigged up, so I didn't get to go, and so, but, I'll fall for that once, but that was a huge thing. I was speaking with Michael Tellinger, with Carl Bolter, with Sam Osmanagich, with Klaus Donna, with Shaw Snissy, everybody, Evan and Stephen Strong, and we were we're having the symposium in Cebu City, I think, in the Philippines, and then we were gonna take a little hop over, a 1-day hop over to Siem Reap, Cambodia, and go to see Angkor Wat. But yeah, if you look underground at Angkor Wat, it looks like Star Wars. But now I've got all of these lidar images from all these sites, and
So what do you
now
do?
I want to go. I want to go uncover it.
Figure out where you want to, like, you go to the location and say, I want to LiDAR this area, and then you go to the satellite and then apply for them taking a picture of the area, or how's it work?
Well, there's so many sites that right now I'm just going on the main site. I'm just going to the main ones. Like when I went the scan I sent for El Castillo, and I got that, and so I did Chichen Itza, and then I tried to get one for Giza, and then the one for the bent pyramid came out, and we told everybody too, when muon radiography comes out in lidar, we're gonna be seeing different things. But like the bent pyramid, they think it's a mistake, but actually it wasn't a mistake, because the name of the pyramid literally means two tones. So it had something to do with the frequency of the pyramid. And
hey, Jeff.
Yeah, they are teams.
Hold on a sec. I think we've lost Wolfen.
Well,
Wolfen, are you there? You're there?
Yeah, I'm here, but I don't know if you can hear me. Yeah, can you hear me? Oh, well. Hello? I don't know. Can you guys hear me? I'm not hearing anything at all now. No. They are completely gone. I'm going to plug you back in.
That's weird.
Yeah, that is really weird. I'm going to plug you back in because I at least... Okay. Well, do I got Leona still? Leona?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Okay. Hang on. Now you should be there. You should be there now.
Yeah.
Okay. Join call. That's what it is. Yeah. Yeah. Can I hear you?
I don't
Rebar.
Yeah. Okay, now I can hear you.
Either they were using rebar back then, and using
Jeff.
clay to make their statues, and then making them hard because they said all these were chiseled, these big giant statues.
Hello, Jeff.
And, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, good, because I couldn't. You guys could not hear me for a while, and it was really frustrating.
Oh, sorry. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I was right now. There's so many of the main sites in the world that it's already so much work that I'm just like trying to get the known sites, and like next time I'll do Nan Madal, and I'm going. I've already done Angkor Wat and Chichen Itza, and so I want to do like Tikal, and then. And you know, one thing, and that's how I kind of started doing it. You know, the picture when you watch Ancient Aliens, they always show that stone down at Pumapunku that shows like a T in like a negative T inset, a T, you know, inside of another one, inside of another one. You know what I'm talking about?
That look like they fit
They have the 8 blocks, but then they have that one stone,
like
and they have it where the layers go down, and it has like steps going down into it, shaped like a T, getting, you know, going deeper until there's a hole that goes through it. And they're like, how do they make these without any tool marks? But if you take, you know, we poured liquid rock, and I just call them dumbbell or bells because they look like, you know, it's poured off weight, and they poured it a thing kind of about the size of an ice chest, but sand, just like what he did was, one of the things we made is, and if you have a bulldozer and it's got, or a backhoe and it's got those teeth on it, instead of replacing the bucket teeth every time, we made these things that fit over the teeth. And so you could change those out instead of this freaking $20,000 bucket. And so, and we made heat tiles and things like that, but it has a negative space inside there because it's got to fit over the tooth. So, and then I learned by the process of it, when you have a sand, they pour the molten stuff in there, and when you put the sand insert down in there, as the stone cools, the sand disappears. It disintegrates, leaving that perfect shape there, leaving perfect sharp edges and everything. And then when it's totally cool, you just blow a little bit of sand out. And so if you had, like, say you had a type of glue, and you were just making out of sand, and you pressed it down into molten, or into like lava, and you pressed that like a sand castle, if you were to press it down into that molten lava, and when it cools, the sand's going to be gone because the heat shrivels it up, but it makes that negative shape inside there, because they're like, how could they make these negative shapes? And like when there's a hole through a corner, and I'm like, you literally could put a bar just inside the metal. Or, I mean, just think about like even those silly straw things that go every direction. If you had one of those full of sand and you laid it down on top of the thing, whenever it cooled, you could blow through one end of it, and that shape would be that complex inside. And so it's just an area that not many people get to see, or and every day I was seeing something and going, man, that would be the easiest way to do it. I don't know if that's the way they did, but I could definitely do it with no tool marks, no problem. And those stones down at Pumapunku, and I started looking at them, and he started showing me places down in Colombia and different places, and I was like, these things are flat gray. They have a bubble out kind of front, and they all cool at the same rate, and they're all the same color, and they're all 99% consistent. They're all that flat gray color, or you'll see them you won't see these stria, these like lines through it like you marble. And so that lets you know that it was manufactured. And then a different method was used later on. You can especially tell in Peru, where they were breaking it along cracks, because they were breaking it along edges. But it's one thing they don't mention is like some of these walls are symmetrical. Like, even though it's puzzle pieces, they don't show you that the other side of the wall is the opposite of that. Like if you have two stones in the middle, one shaped like Oklahoma, on the other side you have the reverse one. And so you see like this high technology, and I'm like, if they had the technology to build that architecture, they definitely have the ability to melt a stone or to mix cement. And that's all there is to it. It's that simple,
And you also did the lidar through it. You can tell that it's not earthly rock, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you look through it, like you can see that it has no inconsistencies in it. There's like, it's completely even all the way through, and it's just too perfect to. But if you melt down, like say, like I did in the AOD furnace, like 3,500 pounds of rock at a time, and then I'm pouring, 40 of these teeth for these bulldozers or for these digging equipment. Well, when they all cool down and you take a sample of it and run it through the mass spectrometer, and they're all like within like 3 decimal places of each other of 1%, then it's manufactured. There's nothing on Earth that naturally there's gonna be impurities, or there's gonna be places of less consistency. There's just been too much movement on Earth, and too many events, and too many things, and too many forces that are always working against each other. But we also lived I believe we lived on a smaller Earth back then too. Like the Ring of Fire, I think, is expanding. I'm starting to believe less in this subduction zone stuff. It causes an area of quakes, but it's more of just like plates rubbing against each other. But the Earth has been expanding, and it expands, which tells you we have like a plasma core, because when the sun gives off energy, it collects on the inside, and you start getting more material. But we also have tons of material raining down from space every day. But the things they don't show you, and I encourage people, go look at like David Sereda. He has a video on YouTube, and it's just a STS video of NASA's, but where the ozone hole was there, it shows like balls of ice filling in that hole. Now somebody we can't see, which only and this is a fact that everybody needs to know about the universe. Only 3.9% of the universe or less is made of atoms, like with the nucleus, with the electrons going around the outside. The rest of them have all of them inside together and a field around it to keep them apart from each other. And so if you have 3.9% of the universe is made of atoms, and we can only see a little slice in between ultraviolet and infrared, well, we're seeing a portion of 3.9% of the universe, and it's just, I just don't see any of these things being taught in school, not even at the college level. And it like that's one of those things, like a fact will get mentioned like that maybe, and it'll get run over and left. But
thought about that before.
I kind of just went and took the classes that I wanted to, and it ended up running into an education degree, but I wasn't going to be teaching. So I didn't do the student teaching part of it. I didn't finish it, but I didn't go that direction anyway. I didn't want to be in the classroom every day. I want to be out there in Cambodia or running around the jungle in Mexico or something. And so I'm trying to facilitate that now. You know, are
you going to be able? Do you think in your lifetime you might be able to replicate the type of concrete they used?
I can already replicate it.
You know how they did it?
Well, because of the Nile, let's just say Egypt, the Nile sodium carbonate is the white stuff you see in the bottom of dried up lake beds and river beds. Well, the Nile's pretty much meandered all over the country, and the Mediterranean used to not even be there. So you got to picture like Europe without the Mediterranean there and the boot of Italy and Greece and all that. But if the Nile meanders all over the place, and I think that's how you measure how old it is, how long would it take for it to get that many miles away from Giza? And I would say that's how many years you're looking back. But and also the thing lining up to Orion. But the country of Chad and Egypt are the number two producers of sodium carbonate in the world. And the sand is there, and so the two most abundant materials, sand and sodium carbonate, they called it natron salt or washing soda or soda ash, and that's what's on the ceiling up in the pyramids too. You know, it's also an electric catalyst. You can use it to break water into hydrogen and oxygen. But I would say the more we learn, the more we realize we don't know. And the schools are just teaching that we know our history, and the Darwinian thing is just off. It's totally false. But they've stopped even teaching that. I mean, it's just ridiculous. You can get a class. I've had groups of people together and said, point to Washington D.C. on this map. 5 people can't do it, and I'm like, National Honor Society people, and I'm like, that's ridiculous. That makes me sad, you know. I'm like that and angry, you know. And it just so I started doing things like I started the Independent Research Society just to like put something or what I've written down over time into some medium, you know, and not lose it. And because I had writings over here, just of different things I wrote about at different times. And, but yeah, I was writing a book, but I had to stop because whenever the lidar and what's called geoscanning, where we could see 6 kilometers deep, and now we've seen,
it's like the golden age, isn't it? Right now,
it absolutely is. We are entering a new golden age, and right now the opposition is trying to stop that. But where's it at? They definitely don't want you to think for yourself, and that's why kids don't understand. Like, they're like, well, what do I need algebra for? And it's not to teach you how to do math. if you're in physics, 32 feet per second squared, you're doing that because you're trying to actually figure out a problem. But it's teaching you how to how to work things out, and how to think logically, and how to work out problems. Just like astronauts, they always say, work the problem, figure out what it is. But do you know who Aaron Swartz is? He was one of the people who, like at the beginning of Anonymous, and
Oh, yeah.
what they were doing is they were making us buy the laws that we have to abide by, and that's not too fair. They're taking the books that we have to live by, and how do you know you're not breaking the law if you can't look at the laws? And so,
Yeah, I always say that. Like, they change the laws every day. We don't know what the hell the laws are when they change it every day, and then they ding you on that. What the fuck kind of system is that?
And then there's federal and federal. Oh yeah, I've got a picture of the labyrinth right here. I'll send it to you. But
I'm gonna have to post these pictures later, folks, because if you're putting them into the Skype chat room, I cannot post that.
Became like part of our creed too, and it said,
"Hey Jeff, can you hear the Wolfman?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I cannot post the pictures if you put them in Skype for the people that are listening.
Oh no, I was just gonna send it to you separately. Just later.
Okay, yeah. Send it to me later. Yeah, that's cool. And then I'll post them in Twitter or something.
I just wanted to show you guys, and but Aaron said I started reading books about the history of education and how the education system was developed, and alternatives to it, and ways that people could actually learn things, as opposed to regurgitating facts that their teachers taught them. And once I questioned the school I was in, I quit questioning the society that built that school. Once I questioned the school I was in, I questioned the society that built the school. Then I questioned the business the school was training people for. And then I questioned the government that set up the whole structure. And once I realized there were real serious problems, fundamental problems, that I could do something to address, I didn't see a way not to. Forget that. And I didn't see a way not to. And after that, that just it just kind of resonated with me right there. I was like, if there's something I can do about it, I'm like, maybe eventually somebody will see some value in what I'm doing or something. And so I never really cared about numbers and getting the research society pretty high in numbers and 90,000 meme posters. Memes don't change the world. But now we've got people in the Research Society, Joseph Patrick Farrell, who has a PhD in patristics, and I mean, everybody you can think of, Carl Johan Kalaman that wrote The 9 Waves, and Gerald Clark, who was on Coast to Coast AM last night, and just you name it, and it was kind of like that core just came together, and Klaus Donna and Dr. Rita Louise, and so I have all these people as mentors. I'm kind of like their kid.
So Carmen Boulder, I want to ask you.
44-year-old kid.
I want to ask you, Jeff, if you're aware of Carmen Boulder's show with Coast to Coast, where she said they found Alexander the Great's tomb and the Ark of the Covenant and the mummy from Cleopatra, all in the same labyrinth.
That surprised me. I know that there's a room in one of the tombs they found, and I think they started looking for it in a few different places because they realized this is something that was done over and over again. You have a tomb and you don't realize that behind that wall is a whole nother place. But she was one of the ones who was she was the one who went out there and found what they call the labyrinth or whatever, but it's not shaped like that. It's shaped like an apartment complex.
I'm not sure if that's the same place that we're talking about. She said it was a French archaeologist, and he asked her to tell people about it, but she did not discover this.
Yeah, and see, we didn't know where Alexander the Great, and that's part of my lineage too. My family, their last name is Alexander or Alex Helios, and but I think Klaus Donna is right, and I thought this: the Burroughs Caves in Illinois. The people, the government tried to make it look fake and all this, or say that it was fake, and for people not to look at it, and that's all they've got to do is say that it's a hoax, and then you get people who don't have to look at it anymore. But you have plates in there of all these different ages and all these kings, and it's like a tomb of kings. And he said that he found, and this is in Illinois, and you find, and there's like the tomb of this king, and then this unknown language that is also on the bottom of a pyramid.
Yes.
Artifact, I guess you'd say.
Pre-Sanskrit.
Found in Ecuador, and this is in Illinois, but
that's the pre-Sanskrit language.
But he also put like millions of dollars worth of gold that he found in a Swiss bank account. He has no money, and then all of a sudden he puts 50 million in gold or something in an account somewhere. And how do you fake that? Where'd you find that at? He's faking it. Like, well, where'd he get all the gold at?
Who's that? Who got the gold?
No.
What?
Came in with a diesel rig full.
Oh wow.
But he closed it off to the public. So I think as long as he's alive, what's his name? I'm trying to remember his name, Henry something. Yeah, but he's not letting anybody in there now. But
wow,
it's another one of those places he said it's just layers of graves, and it even has books. He said at the foot of the vaults that says the people who were there, and we're talking about like. I mean, did they sign that over in Europe or in Asia or in Mongolia or wherever that person was from? And, you hear about like in Norse mythology, and you start having to think, is North America that place? But then think about it. Graham Hancock, this last book was starting to look at North America, because now we're looking underground here, and we've got the story of the ant people. And the word America means land of the flaming serpent or the plumed serpent. And Mississippi is the land of the walking snake and all, it's just, and Napoleon, when he invaded Egypt, he got his artists to come in. And this is one of those facts that is just one of those simple things people need to look at. If you invade a country, call yourself Pharaoh, and then bring your artist in, and out of all the glyphs in the whole freaking place, he gets them to draw just the strip that's on top of the Temple of Abydos at Dendera. And it has these, looks like with legs, and I've been looking at it and trying to learn it myself, and that's one of the things that people have got to do too. And it's not easy, but if you depend on someone else's translation, you're at the mercy of what they say it is, and they can control what the information is. So over time, I've learned to look back and look at things and find out that that's not actually the way it was said, like the original Bible being written in Greek. And when you look back at the translation, like Farouk Ali was on Ground Zero a couple of shows after me, and the show is called Alien Territory. You need to listen to it. The stuff that we see here.
Oh, we're coming up to the top of the hour.
They have like drones that fly in, and then legs pop out, and they hit the ground running. And he's got friends in the Egyptian military and in the Saudi military, and it's stuff we don't see here. So it obviously has to be us, because otherwise somebody would have said it over here. But a lot of those papers are in Urdu and Farsi, and so it never gets translated. And so, and he taught me a lot about going back and looking at the root of the word. Well, granted, the key word is grain or granule.
Yeah.
And the assembling of grains. But that if you want red quartz, you get rose quartz and crush it. And I think they did the same thing.
10 seconds, top of the hour.
In Indonesia, that shows how.
Hold that thought, sir.
One guy crushing the rock.
We will be back.
One guy, and I think they were putting quartz
top of the hour.
So it would have a piezoelectric effect. And that's what I told Sam in Bosnia too.
We are top of the hour. We'll be right back, folks, with Jeffrey Boyd Jr.
Yeah, man, I'm sorry I didn't get here. I've been kind of sick.
We're back. All right. Okay, hang on.
Wolfman, just get
Yeah?
getting tired. We got another half an hour.
Okay. No problem. I would be tired too.
Questions I wanted to ask him before.
I just sent you some images that'll be coming through in a second of the labyrinth and of Angkor Wat and Norse. There's also Norse and Tepe. Most people have never heard of it. And It's right next to, or it's in Turkey, right next to Göbekli Tepe, and like Mark Shermer's big argument with Graham Hancock that he don't come to a battle of wits unarmed against Graham Hancock on Joe Rogan's show, or you're gonna look stupid. But they said,
Yeah, no shit.
There's no living quarters, and right next to Göbekli Tepe, I find Norsen Tepe.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there looking down at the imaging, and I see this hill. It's like anomalous, and so I look at it, and there's actually a hole in the top of the hill, and I think they reburied it, and it was like it has it has a front door to it that's wide, but it's like however much they dug underground, it's like they put a structure up and then put that dirt over the top of it, so you have multi-level apartment building. And it's ridiculous, you know. It's like that's called apartments or condos or something, you know. I mean, they have multiple floors, and you know, using that method, you could have running water too.
I hope they can let us see all this stuff soon.
Yeah, I just sent it through to Skype just a minute ago. I sent it through to Mike, and I sent it to his Facebook too. Let's see.
Now that they can scan 6 miles into the soil and earth.
Yeah, actually.
How long before you think they'll map the whole world? How long will this take to find everything?
I've already seen the outer core, like through the mantle. And the government already can see hundreds or if not thousands of miles deep, almost the radius, a little bit less. There's a hard shell around the outside, and it even backs up what Credo Mutwa that Tellinger's always talking about.
Wow, yeah.
The holy man in South Africa. And they talk about the Chitauri, which were also in the Avengers movie, that invaded New York. Well, those reptile people live underground. Well, not only have we found oceans underneath our oceans floors, like freshwater oceans, and underneath our continents, but there is something around, there is a level where it's a hardened, so if there's a molten area in there, there's a definite area that makes it to where you can't see the center core, but so you're looking at a red core on the inner of the earth. I'll show it to you, and it has a piece that goes straight up to the surface. It like kind of goes at an angle, and it comes up underneath Africa, and then one comes up on the other side of the planet under the Americas, and so there's a couple places where that shell kind of. So I mean, there's so much underneath our feet. It's just unbelievable. I mean,
so exciting time to live.
We haven't even discovered planet Earth yet. I'm telling you. I mean, if you're talking, the percentage of it, we've barely discovered anything. Most people nowadays don't even go out of their home state, but vacation or something. But now people have never looked under our feet. But now, week before last, I got an image where the data comes back from like seismic things, like when China set off that nuke. Different people around the world are all reading that seismic data, because lidar, there's seismic, and then there's what's called 5-proton lidar, and now we've seen the outer core. Cliff High thinks that it's a plasma core too, and that would cause the growing Earth also from gamma rays hitting it. Because gamma rays won't be collected by anything else other than like a liquid, like a crystal plasma or something like that. But this rock-hard outer core, kind of like that magic shell stuff over ice cream, goes up to the surface in a few places. But then what's in the mantle is just, you see the crust around the outside, but it's not like we were taught like an apple. The skin of an apple. That's what we were always taught. Like the crust is about that thin. That's not true. It's much thicker than that. And then there's the mantle, and then you have this outside core, but it's not just a ball. It's like a ball, but it has like these areas that go to the surface, and that even lines up with stuff in the Bible that says like, once it's all over, you'll no longer like ascend, go in and out and up and down the earth, and And you see it under, I think it's like under India, where the Naga are supposed to be underground. Then in Africa, where the Chitauri are supposed to be. But it's just one of those things where you hear all these stories over the years of all these maybe things and fictitious things, and then you hear David Icke, and then you hear all these people, but then the data comes through and it backs it up.
Yeah.
You know? Because that's how I am. I'm just one of those people. The answer, whatever it is
okay.
What it is.
Can I jump in here? I got to jump in here, guys.
If you all the lidar photos and stuff yet, or
no, there's different groups doing it, and you know how information gets out there. Sometimes you got to do it yourself and get the images.
Okay,
like
we're gonna open up the lines here
before things get changed. Like before the Independent Research Society, I was in the Mars Anomaly Research Society and the Lunar Research Society. And whenever a data dump would come in from the rovers, well, it would go into the gigapan, and then we would get the gigapan images, and you have a society of people, thousands of people, and we're sitting up the day it comes in. We're drinking coffee and staying up for 2 days straight, and got the computer on next to my bed. So every time I wake up, we're literally looking through billion pixel images from the mass cam on the rover and finding things and then posting them. And we're trying to see who can find the coolest thing. As we do, they disappear from the archives. And I'm like, they're using us to wipe out everything up there. But I've seen enough architecture where I've kind of like literally broken it up to where we don't know who it was, but there's enough of it where I call it like Mayan or Egyptian or unknown, just by kind of what style it is. And there's a lot of oddities up there. There are pyramids on the moon, perfect pyramids, 3 of them sitting right next to each other, and I've got a picture of that I'll show you too. And but I was looking at it with Dr. Ken Johnson. I was talking to him last week, and but there's 3 pyramids over here, and there's 3 pyramids over here, and I think it's the same way in Egypt, which Cairo actually means city of Mars, and I think it was kind of a neighborhood thing, Earth, Mars, and the moon. It just looks not just seafaring, but all the assumptions that are made that are pushed on us is no 2 people ever met unless they were warring. Nobody ever crossed oceans because they were too low tech and they didn't, and it's just, there were times where we forgot things and the population was dropped down whenever things like comets hit us and stuff like that. But now we're starting to find things like a guy opens up a lump of coal in Russia, and there's all these gears like that fit like at a 90-degree angle to each other, because you know how they make one gear and you make it shaped like a cone and you put another one shaped like a cone so you can turn it. And they're in there, and then like microchips. And one problem is the Permian, and sometime back during then there is a print found, and the problem with it is it's got a shoe on it. And it's different from our shoes. It looks like it has almost like golf cleats on it or something, or like if you were to drive a nail, like a bunch of nails into the like hundreds of, like millions of years, at least like 1 million years old. And we'll think about the high-tech stuff down in Antarctica. That stuff down there, that black basalt facility, and not only that, it has the symbol of the Order of the Black Sun. You can go on Earth Files on Linda
Moulton Howe's
channel and go on playlist and go to hers on my birthday, April 3rd. Go click on it, and she has her whistleblower, Sparta 1 and 2, and they're ex-Navy SEALs, older guys that are out now, but they said when they went down there, the facilities have the symbol of the Order of the Black Sun.
That's down in
There's
Antarctica.
12 arms that come out that have two at 90-degree turns at the end of it. And then and then below there's a star chart, which is which looks like an asterisk kind of. Have you seen the star chart that Carl Sagan put on that the Viking probe or whatever it was that went out years ago? And it shows how far we are from like each magnetron or whatever, and there's one of those below it. And I'm like, that kind of proves that Carl Sagan might have seen that or had some knowledge of it or somehow guided it.
Well, didn't the Eastern Orthodox Pope and Buzz Aldrin, everybody ran down there like 2 years ago?
Well,
is that what they were looking at?
They went down there. Out of all of our elections, you had like Lincoln's was pretty rowdy, but then this last one, you've got literally Obama getting on stage with Hillary Clinton and then hopping off stage and then going down to Bariloche, Chile, and then hopping over with Kerry, and you've got Karelin from the Russian Orthodox Church and the Pope and everybody else down there, and Buzz Aldrin with his shirt on says, "Get your ass to Mars." And we saw the thing before they took it off, but he said, "I've seen pure evil." And, he didn't get sick, altitude sickness, and went out of there. But there is something that, like, the Windsors went down there, which people don't know this. They never look or anything. They just say, "Hey, it's the royal family." You know who the royal family is? Monsanto. That's Bayer, which means they own heroin. Literally, the patent to the name. So they not only own all of the prescription drugs, they just bought Monsanto. So they just bought all the consumable goods. And that's like the biggest power move like in history, and people aren't looking at that. But they went down there and something started making them sick. And that's happened a few times. But these places on the map that they're saying that these things are at, I can take a picture of the whole Antarctic, and right where the Ross ice shelf ends, bam, there's a place right there. Then on the other coast, right where still on the ocean, on the other side where the whistleblower said it was, the data matches. It's totally green and pink and everything in the middle of the continent, and then on the edge of it you got solid black, which means the particles aren't making it through the material, and so you've got thick material, but that's down at the 33 to 34 million year level. But that's why I don't understand the Perry Reese map, because it's not that old and it shows an ice-free Antarctica. And now we find the 100 volcanoes in western Antarctica, and what's weird is Jules Verne wrote about it, and he called it Volcania, and that it had volcanoes that made a bubble above it like a dome that they lived under. And now we find out that that's the largest volcano field. There's 100 active volcanoes underneath there. Like, are these guys psychic? It's not like with Spielberg when he's being spit little facts to put in there, or like Stanley Kubrick, but the truth is out there. But I'm telling you, like, so many of these things, I go on like the Caltech, like IR telescope, infrared telescope, and there's not even a sign-in thing or nothing. Which, hey, it should be open source. We paid for it. If you just go on there, you don't have to sign in or anything, but just nobody uses it. I just think that if a lot of people were using it, they would cut it out. I think they would make it to where you had to go to the college or something, because that's the way everything else works.
Have they LiDAR on the moon yet?
Well, that's what they got me to do for the Mars conference. They were like, I LiDAR things on the Earth, and then I take the gravitic topography, because gravity's not static all over the Earth, usually where there's mountains and a lot more rock, the gravity's heavier. But when you look at a volcano, it has less gravity, because when the material goes back down into the earth, you're left with those volcano tubes, so it's kind of hollow, and that's what the Olympic Mons looks like. And so they kind of wanted me to, the way that I've looked at the lidar on Earth, I was using different maps I found of Mars, so the topography, gravitic topography, the magnetic, different ones, just with all the different fields, and kind of stack them over the top of each other and get kind of a full spectrum thing. And like the perfect example, like the face on Mars looks like it's hollow, and the Olympic Mons is hollow the same way. Then there's I call it the rotunda. It's this round thing next down below the face, southeast of it, and it looks like it has a road. It looks like a mountain in Colorado with a road going right up to the top of it, swirling to the top. And then you have the Valles Marineris, the biggest trench, and it's kind of opposite the Earth. It's like where it's supposed to be high gravity and low gravity. It's kind of like, and that's why I think that even gravity might have polarity, but why shouldn't it? Everything else does. A positive and a negative to it. And I think if we apply that to it, we might start getting some effects. Like now we've started doing things like adding resonance to light and watching it change, and not just watching sand or iron filings change on top of the speaker, but actually you can change the spin of a laser with certain resonance. You could put a speaker right there, and they had this laser spinning, and as they turned it, it would change the shape of the laser. So we're just now finding out about the fabric of everything, And
lift rocks? Do you think they use that to lift the huge rocks, like that guy down in Miami that moved his big rocks? Do you think he used something like that?
Maybe. I mean, you could use vibration, but I don't know. I think there was still so much more technology that we didn't know about, because all the wood from back then, and the further along we get in time, the more biodegradable everything gets. So if you assume the same thing back then, there's so much material missing from the puzzle, that we don't know. But I would say if I was going to build something, I wouldn't drag it and use all that manpower for that. I would get it done, but building it right there, moving a mold, and you could pour 300 stones at one time, or 500 stones a day at one time. You have six people bringing water, 3 people bringing sand, 1 bringing sodium carbonate, and every day you built 500. Well, that answers the time of speed, that answers the type, or the answer of precision, and all the other things.
As the
what are those nuts?
That's a concrete that they're making. So as it ages,
I'm still trying to figure that out. But
Hello?
I think they might have been maybe like a plate,
Jesus.
like we still use, like when you're trying to like make.
I've got a question, guys.
You're trying to stucco a wall and you're making a shape or making something dry up there, but maybe a handle that was used to hold it there is the best I can think right now, but I'm trying not to put an answer to it yet.
Don't fucking tell me you can't hear me
to get
again.
on an answer for it, but they're earthquake-proof walls is what they are, and that's why they're still standing, because all of us have done it where there's some house that burned down and you can go in there and kick the fireplace over.
Jeff.
Because our brick houses are basically perforated stone. It makes it very weak.
Jeff.
And,
Jeff, if you don't answer me, I'm going to get Igor out.
A 5-year-old kid could push over a wall. But hey,
you hear me, Jeff?
Level 9 or 10.
Okay, that's it. I'm getting Igor out.
Down in Bolivia and Peru still going to be there, and Egypt.
Jeff, I got a serious question for you, man. I've been dying to ask you this all night, but you never pause. Can you hear me or what?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. You got to pause. Give a little pause in between your paragraphs so that people can ask you questions. I've been dying to ask you, what the hell is that place that's by your house there. You said DARPA. Yeah, what the fuck is DARPA? I'm a Canadian. I have no idea. What do they do?
The defense, it's the defense. I'm trying to remember the advanced weaponry. It's a thing funded by the military, so they can develop new weapons.
Okay.
Like the Atlas robot.
Okay, that's good enough.
But it's called General Dynamics, and if you go to, and actually it's pretty good. You can go to gd.com, but and that's how they kind of hide it. But that's what blows my mind. Nobody thinks about it. Right next door. Oh no, not next door. Just on the same facility is the community college, and I'm like, that's the last place we should have this. It means the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. And so you get the best guys of MIT and the best of everybody. This is where all the high-tech weapons and all the Atlas robots and all that stuff's being made, and sound technology. But it's just, it's where they make all the weapons of destruction. But I'm like, on the same property with the schools, not the best place to do it, Not the best place to put that, but nobody ever asked the question. I've never heard one person talk about it. And I even saw a guy the other day in camo, and he had something I've never seen before. He had a thing on his back, and he had a flak jacket on it that said force protection. And I'm like, what is it, Space Force? I'm like, what the hell? But
okay, I've got another.
Dude, I got. Everybody puts our money into.
Before the bottom of the hour, I got to ask you this. Okay, how do you go about doing the lidar? I don't understand how you do that.
Just go in there.
Do you go in an airplane
and you can Google our different lidar groups, but also on Facebook, I can show you there's even a lidar group on Facebook, and we share images, and there's different.
But how do you go about getting the images?
Doing it, and it's what's called geoscanning, and that's what goes 6 kilometers deep, 4 miles. And but you just got to look at it. The Japanese company, they do the muon radiography, but there's
how do you go?
You just got to go on sites and look for it, because it's kind of like certain companies pay a certain amount of money, so they have amount of time on a satellite, and you put your wish list in there for your thing, and it comes back whenever their turn for the.
Okay, now I believe we're getting closer to an answer to my question.
On a wish list, and later on it comes back, and so I share with other people inside the lidar group, but. Until we can get to some of these places, I'm definitely keeping some of them under my hat. So because if an independent doesn't find it, no one will ever hear about it.
Okay, I still don't quite understand. So do you have to use the satellites in order to do lidar?
Yeah, now there's been satellites that specifically have been put up to have multiple the 5 proton ability and the different beams on it, and that's how they can shoot underground and see. Okay, if we go inside this place, which now they are using lidar, it's advancing so fast, it's amazing. Now they're doing lidar from drones. They just fly a little homemade drone. You can get a homemade drone and shoot lidar right down into the ground, and you can buy the technology yourself now. And that's been over 1 year.
Are you gonna do that?
Now there's so many people doing it. It's just there's no reason not to. Why wouldn't I? If I can go to a place, think about
bottom of the hour, guys.
During the Civil War days, even there's so many situations you don't think about. People used to go bury rune stones to claim land. People used to go bury gold, and they're the only ones who knew where it was. And that's how people saved their money back then. Well, now you can fly over a field and see everything underground, and so you're not digging anywhere that there is nothing.
Yeah.
And there's a whole world of it because we just started. You know, we're a couple of years into it, so that's why I said we've got to think now. We've got to think of a whole extra dimension of Earth now, not just out. You know, we've got air above us, but we haven't had to think about the altitude. Like a car.
NBC.
Oh man. You've got way.
We are on break, guys.
Listen to this Newport commercial I just wrote. I expect you to write jokes, not commercials. Oh, but listen to this.
You don't hear me when I tell you we're on break?
Because only Newport combines menthol, fine tobaccos.
My God, I thought you were good at this, Jeff.
That's beautiful. I've always said that about Newport. I also say Newport is more refreshing to begin with, more refreshing all the way. Hey, I'll write that next week.
What could be more refreshing than Newport menthol cigarettes? Well, you can only Newport refreshes while you smoke, because only Newport has a fine white filter, menthol and mint, and a blend of great tasting tobaccos. Clean, cool pleasure you won't find in any other cigarette. Newport smokes fresher.
And they spin round, round, and those it was just wheels in the sky. Wheels within wheels, all giant. I saw wheels in the sky. I saw lights, and they were spinning. Wheels in the sky. One source that could have wheels in the sky. Wheels in the sky.
Yeah.
There's one.
Yeah.
Chapter 1, Wheels in the Sky, and nothing else.
I'm hearing a lot of buzzing, man, but no, we're not back yet. Okay.
I wanted to come on there. I tried to do the show last time, but I didn't know that. I either didn't know we were doing that night or whatever. But yeah, I got to where it hadn't been enjoyable lately to do my own show, and I have to. Right now, I'm kind of analyzing that and figuring out what I'm going to do. And it felt good to come on and be a guest again.
I could probably get you on Richard Hoagland's show if you'd be interested. You guys would be.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, we got a lot of friends in common, but I've never actually got to talk to him.
Yeah, he does his show on the weekends now.
Yeah, wait, what's it called? After midnight?
The Other Side of Midnight.
Oh, great. He still calls it that, eh?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've listened to his show, his podcast, and I like it. He's a funny guy, too. And just after talking to Ken and looking at these photos that I've got that are just amazing, like you've got some pictures that look like they should be a meme. It's like, you go talk to him. No, you go talk to him. And it's like, looks like a alien golf cart or something sitting there, or a car. And it's like, you see an astronaut looking in the front, kind of like, are you guys going to kill us? But the guys, I can't remember their names. They were like both Southerners, and so it's funny. It's like they're over there playing golf, doing whatever, and then that was the regolith incident, and I heard the audio for it, and it's hilarious. Well, if you zoom in on it, that's what everybody else is seeing, and it doesn't look like they're running. They can change the speed of it, but you see one guy in the back literally carrying the other guy. They didn't breathe in regolith. They were out of breath because the gravity is different than they thought it was up there, but they were running in 200-pound suits. But they're over there. I think they're over there hitting golf carts, and then there's these things that come up and plop themselves down right there around them. And it's kind of like, okay, this dude's hitting golf balls in my front yard now. That's it. I'm done. I'm going and talk to him. Nobody's playing no golf in my front yard. He's not going to sit here and act like we're not here, you know? But as you see him turn, he said, "Don't look, just keep running." I thought that was hilarious.
What happened to that Israeli moon mission? Do you think it landed, or do you think it crashed? Or
yeah, they crashed it, but I have kind of a doubt because they were using a CGI image of the the altitude of it or where it was, and then they landed and everybody cheered, and I still have it on the wall. And then it was like a few minutes later they said we crashed, but we made it up there, and that was also called the Bereshit. If you put the word bear, look in the Bereshit Bible, and it starts off like Genesis. If you put that word back in there, it says, "In the beginning, I created the Elohim and the heavens and the earth." And so it like changes things up a little bit. But yeah, that's kind of what I did. Go back and look at the root, the oldest things you can find. But
where's all the pictures from it? I mean,
the what?
Obviously they were taking tons of pictures all the way in. Where are all the pictures? I've seen like two.
Exactly. I heard about a month ago. I said, "There's no way that they lost," because somebody said they lost. I don't know if I was talking to Ken or not, but this is before I was doing the show with Ken, and they said, the ones that were vaulted, all of the Apollo footage was lost, and I'm like, there's not even any chance of that. Like, it's in a vault somewhere away from everybody. And copies are made of it, and then the camera that you loan to Stanley Kubrick's like worth millions of dollars, and then you do all this stuff and you send somebody to the moon and you say it's the greatest thing that we ever did, and you're telling me you lost the pictures to it? You go to the moon and you lost the pictures to it. You didn't lose the pictures to it. You told somebody to throw them away and just keep the edited ones so nobody can ever go back and find the other ones. But it's just because the moon is covered in stuff just everywhere, I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, there's 2-mile tall towers, and you can deny it once, but after the data finds it like 7 or 8 times in a row, it's there.
I think so too. Could you imagine?
You can see it.
Under the surface.
You can see it. Yeah, and the back side of the moon, it's just, and people think, you hear facts like, well, the moon doesn't rotate, doesn't spin. Well, no, it's just going around geosynchronous. It's like the back side of the moon is 6 times thicker than the front side, the crust, and it rings like a bell too. So there's something anomalous of it, but I have pictures of structures on the backside of the moon that look like the Hilton or something, and it's just it's ridiculous. And you see an astronaut standing there, and I'm like, Buzz knows that they went up there for that. I totally believe that now.
Do you know Brett Shepard too?
Who?
Brett Shepard.
Oh yeah. I stayed. As a matter of fact, I stayed at his house with Karen the night I left. I stayed at the hotel the first few nights, and then I stayed at their house the last night. Woke up, Brett had me a steak and eggs cooked, and then I went outside and went climbing, and I had to do that right before I came back to Louisiana. I was like, I got to do that right before I go back. I got to at least go climb something.
I met them at the conference, and we've had them on our show, but I haven't had Ken on yet.
Yeah.
Walter, we got to get Ken on. Maybe he can help us. I'll reread
the
book.
Anyways, I've opened up the lines. If anyone wants to call and ask Jeff a question, it's 360-313-8339. 360-313-8339. And there's also the other
I love the moon.
Skype line hashtag. Also, can I mention something else? I've posted on Twitter the photos that you sent me, some of them, hashtag 47talk, and I'm posting them now in Monster Castle Paranormal. You can also find them in Jeff's, I don't know, wherever, maybe in your
Independent Research
Yeah,
Society
Independent Research Society
on
Facebook page.
You can find some. You can find some of them, and some of them I try to keep them so nobody destroys all of them, because they seem to disappear and they change on us like Google Earth does. But yeah, I forgot who was talking about it. If it was Brad Olson or who was talking about it. But yeah, if you go roll back Google Earth to like 2014 or 2012 or somewhere in there,
You get better data.
and compare it to Antarctica now and everywhere, and compare it to them, you'll see like these huge differences in where there was like this disc anomaly type thing hid under this rock like amphitheater kind of shaped
It
cliff,
works.
and then it's
Awesome.
not there, and then these stairs that are just carved out, and then you come back the next year they're not there. But I was like, they're using us to do this, so I'm gonna like stop posting stuff I find and until I've had time to like go there or at least look into it or help the people who are there looking at it, you know. And so that's kind of what I do at the Research Society too. And you know, sometimes people will call me from certain sites, and I'll send them a geoscan or a lidar image of the site, and it kind of helps them, because you have the same thing, the tourist area, and then all that area around there they let grow up as jungle. If you look at it underneath, it's like Coruscant. The reason I compare it to that is like, you know, in Star Wars you have that planet where the entire planet is covered in metal, and cities and the oceans and everything are covered, you know, and you get that, and it looks like motherboards.
Yeah,
And
they said we've only discovered like 10% of it now. We're finding.
oh man, I don't even think that now that the imaging technology's got better. But what I don't understand is when you find out that Angkor Wat is 20 times the size of what you've been showing people for all these years, like why can't, and especially with the story of what goes with it, of what it is, him traveling to different places in different times and all this stuff, and then you look at it and it looks like a big circuit board fully assembled. It's got these swirled circuits and I mean all this stuff. But what's weird is if you look underground at Teotihuacan, at Chichen Itza, at all these places, they're all set up like that. That's why I was saying if they were pulling down electricity, not shooting out a beam, and those pyramids were charged up by pulling electricity out of the air, then that whole city would be charged just by the shape of it. I call it, I mean, if you think about it like piezoelectric macrochip technology.
Yeah.
You know, build it on top of quartz. You
Exactly.
get a charge, put negative side up, it pulls the positive down, and
I believe that's
you
what's
build a
going on
circuit
there,
big
yeah.
enough, and it'll power itself on the
Yeah, why would they
electricity.
have mercury underneath
Have you been to the
them?
Pyramid of the Sun?
I've looked at the lidar of it, but there's a really rough image of it. I'm waiting on a new one to come out now, because right now when you look at it from above, you can't tell what's what. It doesn't look the same as when you look at it in like if you're just looking at it with your eyes, you can see that one and this one, but on the above, on the topography and on the lidar, I don't know if the image was messed with or if it's totally not the same place or what, but you can't even tell which one's which. But it's pretty obvious that they used a natural shape structure and modified it for different things, but they were saying it was for the Bosnian War, you know, recently. But these caves that Dr. Valery Uvarov and from Russia, he's in the Independent Research Society, and Michael Tellinger and Klaus Donna and Samir were walking through the pyramid, and they're going through these tunnels in there. But if you run water through those things, you're charging it up more. And if you're breaking up quartz, and I told him, I said, look for rocks that have been broken up like crushed quartz, mix it in the cement, and now you have a more of a piezoelectric effect. But if you have the weight of a mountain, but supposedly they said he found kind of like a metal contact, a grounding device of some type underneath, or some type of material that it looks manufactured, but some of it they got to keep it a little secret. But
well, didn't they find mercury?
I haven't heard about that.
Well, I mean, but if you look, that's one thing. If you look at all the sites in common that have the pyramids at them, they're almost every one of them are on a quartz foundation. Now you put 25 ton stones, 2.78 million of them on top of a piece of quartz. You have piezoelectricity, naturally, boom, right there.
Yeah, and also, is there not?
You've got massive amount of power to pull that positive charge down,
and you got aquifers.
Light up all of Giza,
Jeff,
and the surrounding areas. Yeah.
Isn't there also aquifers underneath most of these pyramids? Like there's aquifers. I know there is under the Giza pyramids.
Running water.
Yeah, an aquifer is running underneath it, which also generates electricity.
Long enough. I don't think
and that's what
10,480 years that they said when it lined up with Orion. I think the Sphinx has seen a few great years, and so just take that 10,480 and add a few 26,000 years onto it. And even the Mayans, they believed in 5 ages of 5,125 years. And that's all the precession stars, and they all had the great year. And primitive people did not come up with the Mayan long count calendar.
That's true.
It's not possible.
But
if you look everywhere, you start seeing this layout that makes it look like a circuit board, and it's what Tesla was doing. It's what Tesla's.
That's what I was trying to come up. I was coming to that.
Deep underground with the running groundwater, he was grounding it deep, and then making it tall, so he was getting a charge out of it. And almost
you're going to get a charge pretty soon when Igor comes out to electrocute you for interrupting, sir. Because that's exactly what I was trying to fucking say. Excuse me. I was getting to that. I was going to say the aquifer is underneath there for grounding purposes, and that's exactly what Tesla used underneath his tower in where was it now?
Colorado.
It's basically free energy.
Yeah, it is, and you can tap ultimately free energy out of a pyramid or out of the Tesla coil. It's that he designed the Tesla coil, I believe, after the pyramid. After he realized but he's not using quartz at all. The pyramids are using pressure and quartz too, so that really will give a zing. I can't even believe that you can walk inside of there without getting electrocuted.
Too, who owns all this crap, who decided that out of AC and DC, out of Edison and Tesla, who won their little thing, the winner loses, the loser wins. But the Tesla's driving J.P. Morgan around his facility up in Colorado, and there's a little antenna on, and we're talking about the first cars. He's got a little electric car and goes around, and every time he passes one of these little things on the side of the road, it charges his car up, and he makes it to the next one, and it charges it up there and to the next one. And Morgan's like, we can't have this. And once they found out that he broadcast electricity across there, they didn't decide to go with Edison. They destroyed his lab. I think that says something all in itself right there.
Yeah, there's got to be a way that we can actually just easily make our own electricity too. I believe that.
And think about the kinetic wave. Do you know how much power? Think about how much energy is being made by the Earth spinning. But that's what those kinetic waves. And they have wave generators for out there, but you can have them on the bottom. You can have them halfway up to the surface. you can also have them on shore, and when a wave crashes in, it's pushing those plates back, and that could power the whole country. And we already have 75% of our population in coastal cities. You know, you could power 75% of the Earth right there and run power there into the interior. And you wouldn't need the center. Yeah, and that's why if you think about like Point Doom and in the past, where are all these ancient cities? Well, think about it. Portland, Seattle, San Francisco, San Diego, Miami, New Orleans, New York, all of our whole population's on the coast. And you raise the water level about 40 feet and they're gone.
Yeah.
And we had it rise 400, and then the Younger Dryas, I think before that, 2,100 feet. And
my gosh.
And it had more of an effect if you had a smaller Earth too, you know, the amount of water.
Well,
Go ahead.
How small do you think Earth was when life started?
I've heard, the people I've heard that I think know the most about it, I think it was about 40 to 60% of what it is now. I think it was about 60% of what it is now. You know, you have that disk effect, they call it overspin, orbital dynamics, and like an ice skater, when you pull your arms in, it spins faster and faster, but that compacts the material together and leaves the lighter material outside, which could form the moon. But the moon is a weird thing. It could be formed naturally, but it wouldn't come out like that, really, you know. And I've thought about it, and people have asked, how can the moon always face us? I said, well, if you had that disk and it was formed naturally, you would have all the material going the same direction. So eventually you're going to have a very slow speed collision, which wouldn't make the whole moon molten. It would just smash it into the back of it eventually, you know, and then it would solidify and then over years become a solid ball. But that's why the back side faces away from us, because it's like spinning around with a ball on a string. That one side, the heavy side, is going to stay on outside all the time.
You know, we actually see almost 60% of the moon. Did you know that?
Yeah.
It kind of moves. It doesn't, even though it's tidally locked with us, it's actually got a wobble to it.
What's it called? There's a that little wobble. There's a that's how they took the picture. That's the only way to get a picture of the Earth rising. I forgot what they call it, but
it's a holographic overlay.
There's a certain zone of that where that wobble is, and that's the only place where you get the Earth rise effect, you know, to take pictures of. But I was just listening to that the other night. But sometimes I'm like, especially the last 2 days, I've been in bed with my earphones in, but I finally got to where I can't turn it off. It's like,
did you see the SpaceX rocket
from 1999 or 2014 or whatever playing in my ears? But now I've got to like keep my brain busy doing something. But yeah, being sick sucks, but I'm more scared that I'm being poisoned.
We were messing around with frequencies from the pyramids, using dimensions of the pyramids, and I was using the dimensions to match frequencies, and I came up with a chord that, and it was a A sharp chord with.
You're right.
It had a pretty strange harmony with it. It was almost dissonant, and it was really creepy.
Yeah, and the other one, you're right. One's like a 432, like A sharp, and the other one, and that's also one of the kundalinis. I think that's the pineal gland, but the other one's the king's chamber and one's the queen's chamber, but the other one is twice that. So one is that tone, but the other one it's like 8 hertz and then 16 hertz. So it's like a deep man's voice. So if you went, "Oh," you know, it would cause a standing wave inside the room. and there's a guy, Wilhelm Whitweaven. He's from Holland. He's in the Research Society. But if you go listen to his Earth Ancients with Cliff Dunning. He was on that show. That's the only show I've heard him on. But he's in the Independent Research Society now. But listen to his Earth Ancient show, and he was talking about how they were using sound to break the water and make the electricity, and it makes sense because
well, it does make sense.
And they would add stones or take away the stones to tune those rooms, to make more or less space. Yeah, and when the people chanted, it I believe that's the switch that turns the switch that changes what the pyramid is going to do depending on what you sing in there or make noise in there. And I still say that if you scream at a speaker, it's a magnet in there, and if you scream at a speaker loud enough, it will actually produce electricity. Yeah. So it works both ways. I mean, and also there's so many of the effects where this makes sense. Like, all of us have been near a river, and like the biggest place would be like Niagara Falls, but if you go somewhere, you got the Amazon, you got the Nile, but we're talking about the biggest rivers in the world. But if you had that forced through a channel going through the Giza Plateau, and now you have rooms that are hollowed out that like blowing across the top of a bottle, you have that rumbling effect. So not only do you have the weight on top of the quartz, but you also have the frequency of it. That's what I was saying earlier. Like, we haven't yet started mixing the two together. Like, what effect does sound have on light? And now I'm even starting to think, and then the speed of light's not static either. It's not constant either, because if you were near a black hole, it would distort the speed of it also. But then you wonder, at the center of the universe, do you ever get proton saturation? Like, does there ever get to be so much light because you've got so many together that it becomes some other material, or like a plasma? And because the center of the universe around that, or the center of the galaxy around there, you can't see nothing. And think about a bunch of stars and suns that are only as far away from each other as we are from the moon, like 250,000 miles. Like, what happens when you get full light saturation?
Well, you probably get electrocuted.
There's just so much we don't know, but
I would say you'd get electrocuted.
We've just begun to be able to do it, but I made sure that we had access to it. So I made sure that when these tools became available, I put it out there fast enough to where they couldn't take it back. Or if they did, people would notice.
Jeff, you got to get a drone, lidar, gold, just keep traveling the world.
That's what.
For us.
That's the plan, brother. I'm going to dig everything up I can find, and I'm not telling anybody where I go until after I've done it. And once it's got to its location and I made it home, and you're still not going to know whether it's me or not.
Well, we got 2 minutes left, guys.
I'll send you pictures where there's.
Okay, send us pictures.
A city underground.
Jeff, the show is ending. And thank you so much for coming on and staying right to the end of it.
I enjoyed it.
And if you want to plug anything, like Independent Research Society, right? That's the Facebook page.
Just go to the Independent Research Society on Facebook, and I've been doing the show the last few weeks live, and I'm after Alex Jones on LateNightInTheMidlands.com, and my channel on YouTube of all my guest shows, and my talk at the Mars conference is you can just look up my name, just type in Jeffrey Boyd Jr. and you'll see my channel come up on YouTube. But we're building a new channel right now, so just look up Watchers, and independent research society because we kind of just merged and we're about to do some big things. But got to keep those secret or they'll stop you.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
And
I
visit.
appreciate you guys having me on, and things are moving so fast. After I figure out what some of these things are and answer some of these questions, if you guys want to have me back on.
Oh, I definitely want to have you back on.
Then I'll send you the images ahead of time, and I won't have to describe things.
Yeah. Anyway, I posted something. That's what we'll do. We'll get a little more work. 10 seconds left. Go to my Facebook.
Yeah. Peace out.
And join us on my Facebook. Monster Castle Paranormal.